With the 2024 NFL Draft just a few days away, it is time for fans to start getting excited for the future of their favorite teams. Over the years, I have covered a lot of quarterbacks who will be participating in this year's NFL Draft, so I decided to put together a video that included all their backstories of the 23 best quarterbacks in this year's class, according to Dane Brugler's The Beast. To appreciate the full circle moment this is, I will be including the original videos as well as continuing the stories of the players I have not recently done. These are the quarterbacks in the 2024 NFL Draft class. But before we get into this, if you enjoy college football and spring league football content like this, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, let me know who your favorite quarterback is in this year's NFL Draft in the comment section below. Caleb Williams grew up in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. When Williams started playing football, it was actually not at quarterback. He actually started his career playing linebacker and running back when he was young, but the transition to quarterback was seamless. When it came time to decide where he was going to go for high school, Williams fielded offers from every major program in the Washington area, as well as IMG Academy in Florida, along with others. He chose to attend Gonzaga College High School, with his family moving into an apartment that overlooked the Eagles football stadium. According to the Washington Post, Caleb Williams competed in one of the best high school conferences in America. Williams would take over the starting quarterback role as a sophomore, throwing for 2,624 yards and 26 touchdowns. During the WCAC Finals, Williams accounted for 6 touchdowns with 2 rushing touchdowns, a receiving touchdown, and 3 passing touchdowns, one of which was a 41-yard Hail Mary on the last play of the game, resulting in Gonzaga beating number 1 ranked DeMatha 46-43, making it their first WCAC title since 2002. Williams was named the Max Prep Sophomore All-American and was named the Gatorade District of Columbia Football Player of the Year. As a junior, Williams threw for 1,770 yards and 19 touchdowns while rushing for 838 yards and 18 more touchdowns on the ground. He guided Gonzaga to an 8-3 record and was named to the All-Washington Catholic Athlete Conference team and the MVP as well. Going into his senior year, Williams was named the MVP of the Elite 11 event and named a preseason first-team All-American by USA Today and Max Preps. Unfortunately, Williams' senior season was thrown up in the air due to the global health crisis. Due to the ongoing events, the Washington Catholic Athletic Conference postponed the season until after January of this year. That left the season running until the end of April or into May, a time period when many colleges expect their highly rated freshmen to enroll. As of September, Williams debated about moving to Oklahoma early, taking his classes remotely, and meeting with his college coaches in his free time. His father told the Washington Post, "We have a lot of hurdles to jump over to make that happen, but we're pretty good at jumping hurdles." Williams finished his high school career being named to the All-American game and foregoing his senior season. Coming out of high school, according to 24/7 Sports Composite, Caleb Williams was the consensus best quarterback in his class, best player in the Washington, D.C. area, and 6th best player in the 2021 class. Williams received over 22 different Division I offers from the likes of Alabama, Clemson, Florida, Ohio State, and Oklahoma. Williams took several unofficial visits to Clemson, Georgia, and Penn State twice, Oklahoma, and LSU, along with others. On May 4th of 2020, Williams announced his final 3 schools were going to be Oklahoma, LSU, and Maryland, saying, "I really feel like those schools are the best schools for me overall, not just for football. I really feel like those schools can provide me the best opportunity academically and with my football career, with the connections I've built with the coaches, the fans, and the connections my parents and everybody else has built with the coaches. The feel with all of those places, it just feels right." He felt all those schools checked off his important boxes and could lead him to making it to the NFL. Maryland made the list due to being Williams' local school and the success he had when developing Tua Tagovailoa at Alabama. LSU made the list due to the success of Joe Burrow in 2019, but took a hit when Joe Brady left for the NFL. On July 4th, 2020, Williams announced his commitment, choosing the Oklahoma Sooners. With his main goal being to make it to the NFL, the Sooners made sense with Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, and Baker Mayfield all being first and second round picks, with the latter 2 being the first overall picks in their respective drafts. Williams told CBS Sports, "With their past at quarterback, I honestly felt like it was for me. With what Coach Lincoln Riley has been able to do, I just want to learn and hopefully get to the next level." All while fireworks were going off behind him. Steve Wiltfong of 24/7 Sports spoke on the decision, saying, "With Oklahoma, they have the proven track record, but they also have a coaching staff that didn't have any turnover on offense. Lincoln Riley's the play caller, and he's built a tremendous relationship with Caleb. Williams would later sign with Oklahoma on December 16th. After he committed to the Sooners, Williams quickly became a leader, organizing a visit to Norman during the NCAA-mandated dead period. That weekend, he and his family basically ran Oklahoma's recruiting operations. Williams wrote on Sports Illustrated, "Basically, the players and I are the ringleaders of this whole thing, with our parents' help setting it up, to getting the guys to come when we get there, making sure everything goes smoothly." Williams' father, Carl, told the Washington Post back in September, "We had our own process and wanted to make a move that we see as the move. I don't know how you get more invested than moving to the place. Anything we can to help him get to the next level, we're going to do." The trip to Norman also served as a house hunting trip, with Caleb's family planning to move to Norman when he did. Williams is already impressing Oklahoma Sooners fans so far this spring after enrolling early. He hadn't played a live snap in over a year, but played well in the spring game, completing 10 of his 11 passes for 99 yards and a score. He also rushed for 42 yards on 5 carries, showing how athletic he is and how much of a dual-threat quarterback he is. He's already garnering a lot of attention from Sooners fans, as they are excited to see him play in a real game. At the same time, they are also hoping he won't have to play any meaningful snaps this season, with Spencer Rattler as their starting quarterback and probably a first-round pick in the 2022 NFL Draft. Rattler had positive things to say, telling the franchise he's got a good skill set, talented player, confident. He's done a pretty good job up to now. Me being the older guy, I try to take him under my wing and teach him the ropes of everything and kind of help him throughout everything. Caleb Williams would enter the 2021 season serving as the backup to then starting quarterback Spencer Rattler. At the time, Rattler was viewed as a possible high NFL draft pick, and Caleb's would be his heir apparent down the road. That would turn out not to be the case, as halfway through the 2021 iteration of the Red River rivalry, Lincoln Riley would choose to take Rattler out and give Caleb Williams a shot. Rattler had just fumbled the ball, leading to Texas scoring to give them a 35-17 lead with 6:41 left in the second quarter. Williams would propel Oklahoma to a comeback win, with the final score being Sooners 55, Texas 48. Williams' 300 yards of total offense were the most ever by a true freshman against Texas, and Oklahoma's 662 total yards were its third most ever against the Longhorns. Williams would take over the starting role officially the following week, and after throwing for 295 yards and 4 touchdowns, while also rushing for 66 yards and a touchdown in a win over TCU, the job was officially his. He finished the year starting Oklahoma's last 7 games, going 5-2 as a starter, and throwing for 1,912 yards, 21 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, while also rushing for 442 yards and 6 touchdowns on the ground. After Lincoln Riley took the USC job, Williams would enter the transfer portal, with many expecting him to join Riley in Los Angeles. After a few weeks and rumors of him going to other schools, including my Wisconsin Badgers, Williams announced he would be reuniting with Lincoln Riley at USC. Williams would win the starting quarterback job and be named a team captain heading into the season, and would put together a crazy season that saw USC on the doorstep of the college football playoff. He finished the year throwing for 4,537 yards, 42 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, while also rushing for 382 yards and 10 touchdowns on the ground. He would be named the College Football Player of the Year, becoming the first Trojan to earn the award since Reggie Bush in 2005 was named the 2022 Heisman Trophy winner, along with a slew of other major awards. USC would lose in the Pac-12 title game to Utah and to Tulane in the Cotton Bowl to finish the year 11-3. Heading into the 2023 season, there was a lot of hype surrounding USC, and many felt Williams could repeat as the Heisman Trophy winner. Williams, though, would not find the same success, and an interesting narrative would start to form. He would play like Superman and put up insane numbers against unranked teams, but would supposedly struggle against ranked teams, as USC would lose a majority of the big games, but in reality, Williams played well in every game. He finished the year throwing for 3,633 yards, 30 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, while also rushing for 136 yards and 11 touchdowns on the ground, while USC finished the year 7-5. He would opt out of the bowl game to enter the NFL Draft. He was one of the highest NIL earners in college football, with the double-digit deals, including Beats by Dre, Mercedes, Neutrogena, PlayStation, and Topps. Williams started his own charity, the Caleb Cares Foundation, which focuses on combating bullying and addressing mental health. Williams worked with Rich Scangarello during the pre-draft preparation, prior to Scangarello being named the quarterback coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. Williams is ranked as the top quarterback in the 2024 NFL Draft class and is expected to be taken first overall. Drake May was born on August 30th and raised in Charlotte, North Carolina. May comes from an extremely athletic family. His father, Mark, chose to play football at North Carolina over some of the top football teams in the country, including Alabama. He was a Morehead Scholar, which is one of the most prestigious academic honors at UNC, and left the Tar Heels having 3 of the most prolific passing games in school history. He would play 1 season with Tampa Bay before returning to North Carolina as a graduate assistant of Mack Brown's staff, where he met his future wife. May's brother Luke won a national championship in basketball for North Carolina, hitting a game winner against Kentucky in the Elite Eight. His brother Cole also won a national championship in 2017 as a relief pitcher for Florida, who won the College World Series. Drake's brother Bo played basketball before having his career derailed by injuries. Growing up, Drake played football, basketball, and baseball, benefiting from playing on elite AAU basketball teams and select 7-on-7 football teams. May could have been a great pitcher in high school, but chose not to play. May transferred to Meyer Park High School before his sophomore year. Meyer Park was loaded with Division I prospects and sons of current NFL players such as Muhsin Muhammad, Dre Bly, and Josh McCown. May quickly became a star at Meyer Park, throwing for 3,200 yards, 35 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions, leading Meyer Park to the state semifinals as a sophomore. He played even better as a junior, often sitting most of the second half due to the Mustangs having big leads. One of those big games was against rival South Meck, who was coached by former Meyer Park assistant Joe Evans, in which May completed all 13 of his passes for 230 yards and 3 touchdowns en route to a 47-0 win. Evans told The Athletic after the game, "I don't think he threw an incompletion. If he would have taken it easy because it was me, I would have given him hell after the game and been like, you don't take it easy on anybody, I don't care who it is. He's one of those kids where you know exactly what he's going to do, you just can't stop him from doing it. You can game plan all you want." Meyer Park's coach recalled a story about May during the team meal. May is a picky eater and was not eating the food. Chadwick jokingly told May he was going to play like crap because he wasn't feeling well during the game. Chadwick told The Athletic, he's like, "Nah, I'm not feeling that bad," and then he pauses, and he looks up and goes, "And I never play like crap." Dead serious as he can be. I don't even remember the game, but I'm sure he went out that night and threw for 304 touchdowns, and we probably won by 40. May was also his toughest critic, which helped him be so successful. Chadwick recalled his favorite play from May, which was actually an incomplete pass, saying, "We're going into the halftime and Porter Rook was the closest guy. And Porter looked at me and he goes, I looked back and saw May was under pressure, so I stopped running because I figured I was already too far downfield. I went back and looked at the film. He threw that thing 65 yards without even stepping into the throw under pressure." May finished his junior year throwing for 3,512 yards, 50 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, while also rushing for 201 yards and 6 touchdowns on the ground. Meyer Park finished the season with a 12-1 record, losing in the North Carolina 4AA state quarterfinals. May was named second-team All-American and Max Prep North Carolina Player of the Year as a junior, while also being tabbed first-team All-Observer and the Observer Male Athlete of the Year. On the basketball court, May averaged 16.1 points per game and 11.3 rebounds per game, earning all-conference and all-district honors. Going into May's senior year, he was named an SI All-American candidate before the season was postponed due to the global health crisis. May decided to enroll early in college, resulting in him missing his senior season, describing it as heartbreaking. Meyer Park was supposed to play a game at Bank of America Stadium and in a nationally televised game against Trinity Christian, a school in Texas that was quarterbacked by Deion Sanders' son. May was asked what he will remember most about his high school career, answering, "Probably just those Friday nights. You take it for granted sometimes as a high school football player, especially missing my senior year, never walking out on senior night, just kind of those Friday nights, throwing touchdowns, spending time on the sidelines with teammates, and those big playoff games." Before May left for school, he met up with Chadwick, thanking him for coaching him. Chadwick's only request was a seat in the green room at the NFL draft in 3 years, which caused May to laugh. Chadwick believed in his high school quarterback, telling The Athletic, "He is far from cocky and very humble, but he's also extremely confident, takes a lot of pride in what he does. He doesn't want to be the worst of the May brothers, and that's important to him. It's going to be important to him to go to Carolina and not constantly be Luke's little brother. He's going to want to be Drake May, and he's going to want to make his own name for himself." Coming out of high school, according to 24/7 Sports Composite, Drake May was a 4-star recruit who was the 3rd best player in North Carolina, 8th best quarterback, and 55th best player nationally. He received over 16 offers from the likes of Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, North Carolina, and Ohio State. Originally, May narrowed his final school choices down to Alabama and Clemson, 2 of the best programs in the country. He originally wasn't giving North Carolina a lot of thought, who was 5-14 in Larry Fedora's first 2 seasons. Chadwick told The Athletic, "At the time, in Drake's own words, he would tell you in October at the football games, the conversation was, how's the basketball team going to do? And that wasn't what he wanted." Then North Carolina brought back Mack Brown in 2018. May had taken a handful of visits to Tuscaloosa, which resulted in him committing to the Tide during the summer of 2019. Then, Bryce Young flipped to Alabama from USC, who was a year older than May, and North Carolina finished 7-6 with a bowl win in year 1 under Brown. May still stayed committed to the Crimson Tide, while Nick Saban and Steve Sarkisian came to one of May's basketball games to watch him. May never stressed about the process, with Evans saying he'd been in huge, big moments either as a fan or a player, so I think when he got to the recruiting part of it, it was just the way it was supposed to go. I mean, the kid sat second row at Carolina games for 4 years and saw some pretty big moments. After watching the success Howell had combined with his family history, May started to shift to North Carolina. Just before COVID-19 hit, May told his head coach he was going to flip to North Carolina. Chadwick told him, "You're the one that's going to college, not me. But I'm not calling Coach Saban. You're going to have to make that call." May called Saban eventually, in which Saban handled the situation perfectly. May told The Athletic, "I was dreading for about a couple days leading up to it. I kept on pushing it back when I was calling him just because he came to a basketball game and watched me play. I've been down there 5 or so times, sitting in his office, sitting there talking to Coach Saban. It's pretty cool." Saban tried to talk May into taking an official visit to both schools before making the decision, in which May responded, "I said, Coach, I think my mind's already made up. I've been sitting on it for a couple weeks now. It's what I think is the best decision for me, to go forward and be a Tar Heel. It wasn't too long of a phone call, that's for sure." Now, May is officially a Tar Heel. According to 24/7 Sports' Greg Biggins, May is projected to be a future first-round pick with a comparison to Sam Bradford. Biggins writes, "May is a player we still really like as someone who should be able to compete for playing time early in college. Has a big, strong frame and is still filling out. He's a pure pocket passer who reminds me a lot of Alabama quarterback Mac Jones, but is better athletically. He has a strong downfield arm and is very accurate at all 3 levels of the field. He has advanced feel for the position in terms of throwing early and anticipating and understanding how to throw his wide receivers open. He shows toughness standing in the pocket, taking shots to get throws off, and will run for plus yards when he needs to. Can continue to improve his ability to extend plays and make plays outside the pocket, but it's not an area we would call a weakness either. Has the physical tools and cerebral nature to be a very good player at the next level, as well as a high-round NFL draft pick." Back in January, May moved into North Carolina, where he took classes virtually. Mark told The Athletic, "We're all from North Carolina. This is where he belongs and where he needs to be." During the 2021 season, May is not expected to play and is more likely going to be the future of the Tar Heels program rather than the present. May entered his freshman year as a third-string quarterback, getting very little playing time in 2021, and he would appear in 4 games but would end up redshirting with Sam Howell and Jacoby Criswell on the roster. Heading into the 2022 season, Howell would declare for the NFL draft, and May competed with Criswell for the starting quarterback position. The battle would extend all the way through August, with May being named the starting quarterback for the 2022 season opener on August 22, 2022. May impressed in his first start, throwing for 294 yards and 5 touchdowns, becoming the first Tar Heel to throw for 5 touchdowns in their first career start. Through 5 games, May had the most touchdowns with 22 in program history and accounted for 5 total touchdowns in 4 of them. He would finish the year breaking Mitch Trubisky's record of most passing yards in a season by a Tar Heel quarterback, throwing for 4,321 yards, and tied Sam Howell's record for passing touchdowns with 38. He would finish the year throwing for 7 interceptions, while also rushing for 698 yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground. May finished 10th in the Heisman voting, but was named ACC Player of the Year. North Carolina finished the season going 9-5, losing to Clemson in the ACC title game, and Oregon in the Holiday Bowl. Heading into the 2023 college football season, May was viewed as a possible early-round NFL draft pick in the draft and was named preseason ACC Player of the Year. With Phil Longo leaving to become the offensive coordinator at Wisconsin, Chip Lindsey would arrive bringing a new system. May started off the season strong, throwing for over 400 passing yards against Minnesota, Syracuse, and Campbell, but the hype would die down for May and the Tar Heels as they would lose 4 of their last 6 games to finish the year 8-4. May would opt out of the bowl game and finish the season throwing for 3,608 yards, 24 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, also rushing for 449 yards and 9 touchdowns on the ground. May is expected to be the second quarterback taken off the board, though his hype from the media has fallen off, being overshadowed by... Jayden Daniels was born on December 18, 2000 and grew up in San Bernardino, California. His father Jay played cornerback at Washington and Iowa State in college. When Jayden was young, his father wanted his son to follow in his footsteps at corner, but that would not be the case. Jayden and his father would throw the football around together, and he began playing flag football at the age of 5. He started playing tackle football when he was 7 years old, actually playing on the defensive side originally before moving to quarterback his second year. He was not the star player his first year, but was able to find playing time. When he started playing quarterback his second year of youth football, he played for a new team and his career started to take off from there. When Daniels was young, his favorite player was Donovan McNabb, and that is the reason he wears the number 5 jersey today. Daniels attended Cajon High School, which was right around the corner from him. His father had played with head coach Nick Rogers in the past. Originally, Daniels was supposed to just play for the freshman and JV team, but the coaches decided to have him dress on varsity as well. When Daniels' high school team attended a 7-on-7 tournament, the starting quarterback did not show up, so Daniels was thrown in as the starter. The team played well and actually went on to win the championship. As a result, Daniels earned himself an opportunity to fight for the starting job once they put pads on. During an early scrimmage, the other quarterback got hit, so they threw Daniels in. Daniels was nervous, not knowing what to expect, but actually played well, resulting in him winning the starting quarterback job. Daniels played well in his first varsity game and got more comfortable throughout the season. He told Rivals, having that pressure early on, being the starting varsity quarterback as a freshman is something that can kind of prepare me for this year. Starting as a freshman on varsity showed me that you can do anything as a freshman, and you will get on the field if you play well and win the job. And I learned early on that when you are the starter, you have to be mentally ready and make sure you're mentally focused. Daniels finished his freshman year throwing for 2,694 yards, 35 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, while rushing for 216 yards and 3 touchdowns. As a junior, Daniels broke onto the national scene, throwing for 5,136 yards, 62 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, completing 69.9% of his passes, while also rushing for 1,292 yards and 15 touchdowns on the ground. During the season, Daniels had a 99-yard rushing touchdown, and during the state championship game, Daniels accounted for 574 yards, throwing for 293 yards and 4 touchdowns, while rushing for 281 yards and another 4 touchdowns in a 54-28 win and a 14-2 record. Daniels had just as strong of a season as a senior, averaging 322.5 passing yards per game and 109.7 rushing yards per game. He finished the season throwing for 4,515 yards, 60 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, while completing 70.7% of his passes. He also rushed for 1,536 yards and 16 touchdowns on the ground. The Cowboys finished the season going 12-2, reaching the 2018 Southern Section Division III Championship. Daniels rewrote not just his high school record book, but the CIF Southern Section record book, finishing his career throwing for 14,007 yards and 170 touchdowns, while also rushing for 3,645 yards and 41 touchdowns on the ground. He finished his high school career with a record of 44-10 as a starting quarterback, while being named an Elite 11 finalist and playing in the Under Armour All-American game. Coming out of high school, according to 24/7 Sports Composite, Jayden Daniels was a 4-star recruit who was the second best dual threat quarterback, third best player in California, and 35th best player in the class of 2019. Daniels received over 25 different Division I offers from the likes of Alabama, Arizona State, Georgia, LSU, and Ohio State. As you would expect, he received offers from most of the Pac-12 schools, accumulating 9 in total and visiting Arizona State, California, UCLA, and Utah. Daniels' parents didn't let him focus on what recruits were getting offers in his class when he was young, and he realized he could start at the collegiate level after his junior year when he started receiving bigger offers. Daniels was one of the later quarterbacks to commit because he wanted to focus on his team his senior year and didn't want to rush his commitment. Daniels told Rivals, "My parents kept me very grounded, but I also have my self-discipline. My parents taught me a lot of good things at a young age. As I got older, I started making decisions for myself and knew what had to come first. I knew it was school because I can't have bad grades." Daniels had dreamed about playing in the NFL from a young age. Originally, Arizona State was not going to be one of his top choices, but that all changed when they hired Herm Edwards to be head coach. Daniels' first conversation with Herm Edwards was a very important and impactful one. He told Rivals, "If I were to come to Arizona State, that he would always look out for me." Saying that in our first conversation and looking my mom in the eye and saying he's a man of his word meant everything. That meant a lot to her because I'm going to school 4 or 5 hours away from home, and she has to let me go and trust ASU. My dad also has to trust the people in the school I'm going to, and he knows he could trust them after what Coach Herm said. Having all that NFL experience on staff did speak a lot to me during that recruitment process. The coaches at ASU know what it takes for a quarterback to play at the next level and be successful. Arizona State practices were also structured like NFL ones. As a result, Jayden Daniels committed to the Sun Devils a week before signing day and later signed with them. According to Charles Power of 24/7 Sports, Daniels was projected as a multi-year Power 5 starter with the upside of being an all-league quarterback at the helm of a highly productive offense, if put in the right situation. Projects to be an early NFL draft selection, specifically the second round, with a pro comparison to Deshaun Watson. Jayden Daniels quickly impressed coaches throughout the spring his freshman year, only throwing one interception, which was his last throw of the spring, which he was mad about. He won the starting job, becoming the first true freshman quarterback in program history to start the first game of the season. In a win over Kent State, Daniels threw for 284 yards and 2 touchdowns, while also rushing for a touchdown, becoming the third quarterback in Arizona State program history to win the first career start as a freshman, joining John Walker in 1984 and Dennis Sproul in 1974. In an upset win over number 6 Oregon, Jayden Daniels threw for 408 yards and 3 touchdowns in a 31-28 win. He finished his freshman season throwing for 2,943 yards, 17 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, playing in 12 of Arizona State's 13 games. He missed the USC game after sustaining a lower leg injury on a scramble in a loss to UCLA. Daniels also rushed for 355 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. He finished the season not throwing an interception on 157 attempts, while finishing as Pac-12 Honorable Mention Freshman Offensive Player of the Year and Sean Alexander Freshman of the Year semifinalist. Daniels and Arizona State had a tough 2020, only playing 4 games. In the season opener, Daniels threw for 134 yards and 1 touchdown, while rushing for 111 yards on the ground in a 28-27 loss. In a loss to UCLA, Daniels threw his first interception going back to October 2019, almost 14 months earlier, finishing the game throwing for 225 yards and 1 touchdown, while rushing for a touchdown as well. In a 70-7 win over Arizona, Daniels finished the game going 9 for 11 with 203 passing yards and 2 touchdowns, while rushing for a touchdown on the ground. He finished the 2020 season throwing for 139 yards and 1 touchdown, while rushing for 83 yards and 2 touchdowns in a win over Oregon State. Daniels finished his sophomore year throwing for 701 yards, 5 touchdowns and 1 interception, while rushing for 223 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Going into the 2021 season, Arizona State and Jayden Daniels look to have a strong year. As of May 11th, Daniels has the 8th highest odds to be the first overall pick in the 2022 NFL Draft and is projected to be a future first-round pick. He also has 25-1 odds of winning the Heisman Trophy, according to Vegas Insider. Daniels would not find the same type of success through the air as he did in 2019, throwing for 2,380 yards, 10 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, but also rushed for 710 yards and 6 touchdowns on the ground. Arizona State would finish the year going 8-5 and lost to Wisconsin in the Las Vegas Bowl. During that offseason, it was announced that Arizona State was under NCAA investigation due to recruiting violations that included Daniels' mom, Regina Jackson, allegedly helping book more than $1,000 in flights for recruits. Daniels himself was not implicated with the wrongdoings in the document, and Jackson denied any involvement helping ASU. With Arizona State's program a mess, Jayden decided to enter the transfer portal and chose to commit to LSU over Oklahoma. LSU had just brought in Notre Dame head coach Brian Kelly to be their brand new head coach, and Daniels would win the starting quarterback job. He would finish the 2022 season throwing for 2,913 yards, 17 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, while also rushing for 885 yards, 11 touchdowns on the ground. 2023, though, would be the season he would show off of how special of a true superstar he really was. Daniels became the first player in FBS history to record at least 350 passing yards and 200 rushing yards in the same game, doing so against the Florida Gators. He counted for 8 touchdowns against Georgia State, would go on to win the Heisman Trophy as well as a slew of other awards, becoming the 3rd LSU player to do so and first since Joe Burrow in 2019. He used custom virtual reality headset software as part of his training during the season and attributed it to helping him make quicker decisions, and LSU swears by the technology after finding the German-based company. He started using the technology heading into the Mississippi State game. Daniels would opt out of LSU's bowl game as they would finish the season 10-3, and he finished the year throwing for 3,812 yards, 40 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, also rushing for 1,134 yards and 10 touchdowns on the ground. He's an extremely athletic and versatile quarterback who is projected to be picked as high as number 2, but is the consensus number 3 quarterback in the draft. J.J. McCarthy was born on January 20th, 2003, and grew up in LaGrange Park, Illinois, about a half-hour east of Chicago. While he's most known for his football ability, going into high school, McCarthy was also a great hockey player. During his freshman year, JJ would be picked up from his father after football practice at 6 p.m. and drive an hour to hockey practice and get home around midnight. He would then repeat that every day. After his football games Friday night, JJ would either catch an early morning flight or drive through the night to meet his hockey team for a tournament. The family knew they were not going to be able to maintain this hectic schedule, and a decision needed to be made. He could go the hockey route, which would mean join a junior team, which meant leaving home and waiting for a collegiate offer or professional opportunity, or he could focus on football, where there was a much clearer path. Jim McCarthy, JJ's father, told The Athletic if he was going to juniors, he would have to leave after his junior year in high school to go live with another family in God knows where, Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. I don't think he was ready for that. He still needed to grow a little bit. Giving up hockey was a tough decision since he had been playing it since he was in kindergarten. McCarthy showed he had an obsessive drive to succeed in football from a young age. When he was in 5th grade, he started working with a professional trainer who would put him through an exhausting workout. When his mother picked him up after the first workout, she wondered if he would ever want to go back to training again. JJ was back the next day. Jim McCarthy knew JJ was a special talent from a young age. The ball looked different coming out of his hands compared to the other kids, and he was comfortable when a play broke down, having the ability to turn it into something special. His father was his youth coach and got to watch JJ's development right in front of his eyes. Before his freshman year of high school, JJ attended a camp at Iowa State where he caught the eye of head coach Matt Campbell. Before McCarthy could figure out what was going on, he was being offered by the Cyclones. Megan McCarthy, JJ's mom, told The Athletic, "Honestly, I can't say I saw that coming at all. Everybody wants to be able to play in college. Not that many kids get to do it. Whether or not he was really good, who knew? I didn't know." JJ McCarthy attended Nazareth High School in LaGrange Park, where he would become a key playmaker right away. As a freshman, McCarthy helped his team reach the state championship in 2017. As a sophomore, McCarthy completed 76% of his passes for 3,448 yards, 39 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions, while also rushing for 2 more touchdowns. He led his team to the state championship for the 2nd year in a row, but did it with a broken thumb. On Thanksgiving of 2018, the family found an orthopedic surgeon who agreed to let JJ play as long as he was able to deal with the pain. It was very unlikely that there would be further damage done to his thumb, but if he played poorly, it could affect his recruiting and cause his stock to fall. JJ did not care. He was playing for his team. JJ convinced his parents to sign a waiver supporting his decision and went out and threw for 201 yards in a 31-10 win over St. Charles North. Tim Rackey, JJ's high school coach, told The Athletic, "Some kids would say, I don't want to get bad film out there. He was playing in that game regardless of what the doctor said. Once I was telling all the college coaches that story, it was like, I want that kid." Expectations were high for McCarthy and his school the following year. McCarthy threw for 2,820 yards and 34 touchdowns while guiding Nazareth to the state championship once again his junior season. Unfortunately, this game would not end in a storybook ending, as McCarthy struggled completing 8 of his 25 passes in a 37-13 loss. The next morning, McCarthy woke up at 7:30 a.m. and went for a run. His parents decided to go up to his room, and on JJ's whiteboard was the scouting report for the game with reflection written all around them and motivational quotes. In the upper left-hand corner was the score of the game. In the upper right-hand corner was the word overrated written in all caps. Between the two was an NFL shield with the message, "This shit is not going to come easy." Back in February of 2020, the Wolverine wrote about JJ's daily schedule. He wakes up at 5 a.m. and runs to school. Then he proceeds to do a cardio workout, go to class, hit the weight room, pick up his sister, work at his part-time job, and train with a private quarterback trainer from 9:30 to 11 p.m. In between all that, he finds time to do homework and prepares to travel across the country with his 7v7 team, Midwest Boom. The kid has an insane work ethic. McCarthy wanted to play his senior year, and at the time, due to COVID, it was unknown whether Illinois was going to have a high school season. Nazareth was also blocking him from graduating early, according to the Detroit Free Press. So where did McCarthy transfer? IMG Academy in Florida. IMG Academy is known as one of the top high school programs in the country. It has state-of-the-art facilities, great coaches, and is known for sending players to the highest level of Division I football. Greg Holcomb, JJ McCarthy's quarterback coach in Illinois, told the Detroit Free Press, "You basically walk into that place and are in an environment where you got the equipment and training facilities and amenities that high schools simply don't have. It's almost like college level environment, but for high school kids. IMG Academy allowed JJ to play against some of the top programs in the country while being broadcasted in games nationally. IMG was also going to allow McCarthy to enroll early for college. During the offseason during his junior and senior season, JJ McCarthy put on 20 pounds and increased his arm strength. According to Holcomb, McCarthy left the state of Illinois as the best quarterback in state history. During his senior year at IMG Academy, McCarthy completed 57% of his passes for 1,392 yards and 16 touchdowns while not throwing a single interception and adding a touchdown on the ground. IMG finished the season 8-0, outscoring opponents 381-82. IMG also won the 2020 National Championship as well. McCarthy was given the reins of the offense and allowed to run with it. He was allowed to call 50% of third down plays himself, and when he was hot, the coaches let him call full drives. JJ also never accepted a game ball. When given to him, he would give it to underclassmen on the scout team who gave the group a good look that week. According to the coaches, kids practiced a lot harder after this. Talking to anybody who has worked with McCarthy, he is built to win. According to 24/7 Sports Composite, JJ McCarthy is a 5-star recruit who was the second best pro-style quarterback, 6th best player in Illinois, and 24th best player nationally. McCarthy received over 34 different Division I offers from the likes of LSU, Miami, Michigan, Ohio State, and Wisconsin. McCarthy actually grew up an Ohio State fan and believed he was on his way to Columbus until the relationship between the two soured. McCarthy told Sports Illustrated, "Coach Day told me he wasn't going to take a 2021 quarterback until the end of the summer or anything like that because he wanted to make sure everything was all good. So I didn't really worry about all that during my visits. But I didn't get that feeling when I was there. I get it's a business, but it always sucks being lied to. It's a business and they have to do what they have to do. They lied to my face, but it is all good now." McCarthy shifted his focus to Michigan, who checked all the boxes. Prestigious school with strong academics and close enough to home where his parents could come see every game. McCarthy enrolled early at Michigan and is competing for the starting quarterback job. Gabe Brooks of 24/7 Sports projects McCarthy to be a future second-round pick in the NFL draft, and his pro comparison is Kyle Allen. JJ McCarthy would play in 11 games as a freshman, serving as Cade McNamara's backup throughout the season, and made his debut against Western Michigan when he completed 6 of his passes for 80 yards and a touchdown. He would finish the year throwing for 516 yards, 5 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, while also rushing for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Throughout the offseason, Michigan fans felt like McCarthy gave them a better chance to win a national title when compared to McNamara, and McCarthy would prove them fan base right by beating Cade out for the starting quarterback job heading into week 1 of the season, but the competition was not over yet, according to Harbaugh, who felt it was too close to call. After throwing for 229 yards and 3 touchdowns against Hawaii in one half, Harbaugh announced that JJ was going to be the starting quarterback against UConn, and he would not give the job up from there. McCarthy led Michigan to an undefeated regular season, including a win over Ohio State, where he threw for 263 yards and 3 touchdowns, as well as rushed for a touchdown, led them to the Big Ten title. They would take on TCU in the Fiesta Bowl, which was the first round of the college football playoff. McCarthy would throw for 343 yards and 2 touchdowns, but also had 2 picks that were returned for touchdowns, as the Wolverines fell to TCU 51-45. McCarthy finished the year throwing for 2,719 yards, 22 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, while also rushing for 306 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground. JJ would have an even better junior season, Michigan to an undefeated record, and to the national championship while throwing for 2,991 yards, 22 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, while also rushing for 202 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. He became the fastest quarterback in Michigan history to record 25 career wins as a starter and was named Big Ten Quarterback of the Year. He had finished his career going 27-1 as a starter, and throughout the draft process, he has seen his draft stock skyrocket. He comes from a pro-style offense and has been in a leadership position throughout his time at Michigan. He is a project quarterback who has the potential to be a great one, but is also viewed as someone who may have succeeded because he had so much talent around him at Michigan. Bo Nix was born on February 5th and went to high school in Pinson, Alabama, a town right outside Birmingham and about 3 hours away from the Auburn campus. Bo's father, Patrick, played quarterback at Auburn from 1992 to 1995 and served as his head football coach in high school. From a young age, Bo wanted to play quarterback at Auburn just like his father did. Patrick helped train and prepare his son from a young age. As a sophomore, Nix led Scottsboro High School to a 9-0 start and the number 1 rank in the Class 5A state rankings, the first time for Scottsboro since 1967. At the time, he had thrown for 1,382 yards, 14 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, while also rushing for 852 yards and 12 touchdowns. After the season, Bo's father took the head coaching job at Pinson, and Bo would transfer there. The jump to 6A did not affect the future Tiger, as he threw for 290 yards and 5 total touchdowns in a 47-13 win over McCalla. Early in his junior season, Nix would fracture his wrist, and it was unknown if he was going to be able to return before the end of the season. He was able to recover quickly, returning later that year. During the state quarterfinals, he threw for 400 yards and 7 touchdowns, along with the game-winning 2-point conversion to win 51-50, and went on to win the state championship, the first time in school history for Pinson. Nix finished the season throwing for 2,872 yards, 36 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. In the season opener of his senior year, Pinson would lose to 7A state champs Hoover, Nix's only loss at Pinson as a starter, and Nix shined the rest of the season and led Pinson to the state title game once again, where they won 26-17 behind Nix's 306 passing yards, 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, and his 66 yards on the ground and a touchdown. After the game, Nix thanked his father, saying, "I told him thanks. All the days I wanted to hug him after the game, but couldn't. All the days upcoming that I'm going to want to hug him and can't. Maybe wanting him on the sideline telling me what to do. My whole life the last 5 years, he's ultimately told me what to do. I've listened to him every time. It's surreal. It's a special thing." Nix finished his senior season throwing for 3,496 yards and 48 touchdowns, and added 351 yards and 6 touchdowns on the ground. He was named the NHSCA Football Player of the Year, becoming the first Alabama player to win the award. Eric Hess, the executive director of NHSCA, told USA Today, "Bo is an excellent example of what this award stands for. He has excelled as much in the classroom as he has on the football field. We congratulate Bo on the outstanding high school career and wish him success at Auburn." While Jeff Fisher, the founder of the High School Football America and the head of the nominating committee, told USA Today, "In a state that has produced so many great high school football players, Bo's name is near the top. His arm and his legs drove defensive coordinators crazy throughout his career. He set all-time state records while still maintaining a GPA above 4.0, which makes him a perfect choice for this honor. Bo is a 3-time All-State player and named Alabama's Mr. Football and Gatorade Player of the Year in 2018. He finished his high school career accumulating over 12,000 total yards, the most ever at the time by an Alabama player, with over 10,000 passing yards and over 2,000 rushing yards and 161 total touchdowns. Coming out of high school, Bo Nix was a 5-star recruit according to 24/7 Sports Composite. He was the #1 dual-threat quarterback, 3rd best player in Alabama, and 33rd best player nationally. He received over 18 different Division I offers from the likes of Alabama, Auburn, Clemson, Florida, and Oklahoma. It was not hard to figure out where the Alabama native would go, as he would follow in his father's footsteps and commit to play quarterback at Auburn. According to former director of scouting for 24/7 Sports, Barton Simmons, Nix was projected to be a future Day 2 pick with a comparison to Trace McSorley. Simmons writes, "Big enough quarterback with some stockiness that looks capable of holding up to some hits on the next level. Very instinctive pass that has creativity as a playmaker. Shows sudden movement and reactive quickness in the pocket both to avoid rushers and deliver the football. Quick thinker. Possesses light feet with good energy. Extremely accurate, particularly on short and intermediate throws. More athletic than you realize and can be a threat in the run game. Does not have an overpowering arm and can float downfield big throws. Has strong football pedigree, looks like a multi-year starter and impact quarterback that fits today's game well. Potential early round NFL draft pick." Nix decided to enroll early at Auburn and compete for the starting job right away. In the spring, he struggled a bit, but was able to turn it around during fall camp. He was comfortable in the offense during the fall camp, beating out Joey Gatewood for the starting job. Nix became the first true freshman to start a season opener for Auburn in 73 years, with the last player to do so being Travis Tidwell in 1946. Nix spoke on the situation saying, "It's a dream come true. I've always wanted to play quarterback at Auburn. It's a goal of mine that I've had for a long time, as far as I can remember. All the way back to throwing the football in the backyard with my dad, I wanted to play quarterback at Auburn. So it's just an awesome moment. You honestly couldn't write it any better." Head coach Gus Malzahn told AP News, "I think he had a very good fall camp. I think there's a lot of intangibles that go with that. But at the end of the day, it's just the consistency and giving us the best chance of being successful." And when Nix was told about the last true freshman to start, he said, "That stat is pretty special. To me, it's something I was shooting for. It was a goal of mine. Like I said, and honestly, that stuff, it goes to show how good the team welcomed me in and how much they helped me get on the field kind of quickly. It was a good situation. I came in a good situation, and our coaches, Coach Malzahn and Coach Dillingham, they really did a really good job of getting me prepared quickly." Nix and Auburn had an up and down 2019 season, opening the season with a win over Oregon where Nix threw for 177 yards, 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, completing 41.9% of his passes, but broke a freshman record later in the season for touchdown passes and set a new record for freshman completions against Stanford. The following week, he led Auburn to a win over Alabama, but lost to Minnesota in the bowl game. Nix finished his freshman year throwing for 2,542 yards, 16 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, while also rushing for 313 yards and 7 touchdowns. Auburn finished the season going 9-4, playing 7 top 25 teams, 6 of which finished in the top 10. The Auburn defense helped carry the team, and Nix struggled on the road. Going into the 2020 season, Nix entered the season with a lot of expectations around him. Chad Morris was now running the show on offense, and many expected Nix to improve. He struggled on the road once again, finishing the season throwing for 2,415 yards, 12 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, while rushing for 388 yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground. He finished the year throwing 8 touchdowns and 1 interception at home, but 3 touchdowns to 6 interceptions on the road. Throughout his career, he has thrown for 15 touchdowns and 1 interception at home, and 11 touchdowns to 12 interceptions on the road. Auburn replaced their coaching staff going into 2021, bringing in Brian Harsons as head football coach and Mike Bobo as the offensive coordinator. Bobo worked with Nix's mechanics, decision-making, and pre-snap reads, but during the first scrimmage, Nix and Finley both struggled with decision-making according to Harsons. In the season opener against Akron, Nix played well, completing 20 of his 22 passes for 275 yards and 3 touchdowns in a 60-10 win at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Jordan Palmer believes Nix is poised for a breakout year, telling 24/7 Sports, "I've been around Bo a lot the last couple off seasons coming out of high school. Bo was among one of the best dual-threat quarterbacks. He lost at the Elite 11 finals to Spencer Rattler, and he's right up there as one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I don't think what people recognize is that his freshman year, his strength coach told me he was the top 5 fastest guy on the team in a 10-yard split. So what we haven't seen from Bo Nix yet is just how electric as a runner. It's because I think that previous offense and system with Gus Malzahn, they had a lot of success there. I don't think Bo was able to establish himself as a pass first then run, which is when the opportunities can present themselves and you can get that open space. Designed runs can work, but you're funneling the defense towards the run. It's when everyone else is going vertical and the quarterback decides to take off that you see big runs. I think you'll see more of those from Bo and see how athletic he is. From an arm talent standpoint, he's ready to rock. I love the new system he has there. Off the field, Nix hosted a football camp where he went to high school for 3rd graders to 12th graders and signed an NIL deal with Melio Sweet Tea. It will be interesting to see how Nix does this season, but with a strong season, he could be a name being thrown around in the 2022 NFL draft class. Bo Nix's 2021 season would be an up and down one, as he would lead Auburn to their first win on the road against LSU since 1999, and also led them to an upset win over number 10 Ole Miss, would also struggle against Georgia State, which led to him being benched for TJ Finley. Nix's Auburn career would end in a heartbreaking fashion, as he would suffer a season-ending injury against Mississippi State, finishing the year throwing for 2,294 yards, 11 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, while also rushing for 4 touchdowns on the ground. Needing a change of scenery, Nix would enter the transfer portal after being miserable under head coach Brian Harsin, and he would choose to play for Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks, reviving his career throwing for 3,593 yards, 29 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, also rushing for 510 yards and 14 touchdowns on the ground in 2022, leading Oregon to a 10-3 record. Nix had revived his draft stock, and many wondered whether he was going to enter the 2023 NFL Draft or use his last year of eligibility to try to lead Oregon to a Pac-12 title and college football playoff spot. Nix would announce he was returning for his senior season, entering the season as a Heisman contender. Nix would not disappoint, leading Oregon to an 11-1 regular season record, heading into the Pac-12 title game, and the winner of the matchup was expected to make it to the college football playoff. Unfortunately, Oregon would lose a heartbreaker to the Huskies 34-31, but they would rebound with a dominant win over Liberty 45-6 to finish the year 12-2. Nix would throw for 4,508 yards, 45 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, also rushing for 228 yards and 6 touchdowns on the ground. He was a Heisman Trophy finalist. He was named the Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year and is expected to be a first-round NFL draft pick this week. Michael Penix Jr. was born on May 8, 2000, and grew up in Dade City, Florida. Dade City is a small rural town known for their country fair and Kumquat Festival. Penix's mom ran track at Tennessee Tech in Cookeville, Tennessee, where Michael was actually born, while his dad ran for 2,000 rushing yards in his career at Tech and holds the single-game rushing record for the school with 261 rushing yards. Michael, who would go on to be known as Little Mike in Dade City, would take his first step in the south end zone of the W.F. Edwards Stadium at Pasco High School, where his father was an all-state player. His dad at the time was serving as an assistant coach at the school, so when he came to practice, the trainers would watch little Mike. Mike loved running through the house and throwing the football up in the air and catching it, and as a kid, his parents let him try everything: football, baseball, basketball, track, and soccer. Little Mike saw the game differently than others, always being a little more mature at a younger age. He could run and he could throw the ball at an age most kids couldn't. He was so impressive on and off the field that even his grandmother felt like they should get him a private quarterback coach to help him refine his skills. In middle school, little Mike began working with renowned quarterback coach Chip Bennett, with Bennett telling the Tampa Bay Times, and he was raw, but I remember getting in the car calling John Calio, a staff member of Bennett's and former Maryland and Tampa Bay Storms quarterback, saying, "We have a Power 5 quarterback." Brad Starling, Pasco High School's offensive coordinator, recommended that Michael play on the varsity as a freshman to get important reps in and against older players. Little Mike served as the backup for most of the season behind Grant Starling, Brad's son, until Grant got hurt. Little Mike made his first varsity start in a must-win district showdown against rival Hernando on October 17, 2014. The Pirates committed 3 early turnovers and gave up a safety when a tailback was tackled in the end zone, but Little Mike responded with a touchdown pass of 19 and 4 yards to help rally his team to a 24-2 victory. With Grant graduating the following year, Michael would take over the starting quarterback job, having 5 touchdowns in the spring game against Wiregrass Ranch. Penix would struggle during his sophomore season with a new offensive coordinator coming to town, who ran a wing T offense. After a 4-6 season ended with a 50-16 loss to rival Zephyrhills, the Penix family decided a change was needed. His father explained, "You can't have a quarterback like Michael in the wing T. He's never been a running quarterback. That's what people don't understand. He's never been a running quarterback. Ever. Now people think he can't run, but they're dead wrong. He just doesn't like to run. That's not his game." Bennett suggested that the Penix family look at Tampa Bay Tech, who ran a spread offense. The family ultimately chose to move to Riverview, and coach Jason Roberts knew he had a special player on his hands during the school's 7v7 league matchup. Roberts recalled, "He threw an out from one hash to the opposite sideline on a frozen rope, and everybody kind of stopped. It was a deep out. My offense coordinator and I kind of looked at each other and were like, that ain't normal." A few weeks later, quarterback Trent Wyatt, who had helped take Tampa Bay Tech to the playoffs the year before, offered to change positions because he knew Michael was a special quarterback. Behind his 2,078 yards and 31 touchdowns and 1 interception, Little Mike led Tampa Bay Tech to a 9-2 record into the playoffs. In a 48-45 double overtime win against St. Petersburg in a first-round playoff game, his 55-yard fourth-quarter strike to Daquan Green set up the game-tying touchdown by, of all people, Wyatt. Unfortunately, Tampa Bay Tech would fall to Eastlake 20-14 on the road. Penix would be even more impressive his senior year, leading the Titans to the Class 6A regional finals behind his 2,165 passing yards, 30 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, meaning in 2 years Michael threw 3 interceptions, with Roberts claiming 2 of those were tipped passes. Michael was also named the Offensive Player of the Year for Hillsborough County. On top of succeeding at football, he also impressed on the basketball court as a forward and on the baseball diamond as a center fielder. Coming out of high school according to 24/7 Sports Composite, Michael Penix Jr. was a 3-star recruit who was the 21st best pro-style quarterback and 548th best player in the 2018 recruiting class. He received over 11 different Division I offers from the likes of Arizona, Florida State, Indiana, Oregon, and Tennessee. He originally committed to Tennessee before Butch Jones was fired that November. Once the new coaching staff came in, they decided to pull the offer on Penix a few days before the early signing period. Head coach Jeremy Pruitt and co. made it clear they did not want Penix, and Michael decided to take to social media to let everybody know his decommitment wasn't his choice. He would instead commit to Indiana, ending a frustrating recruiting process, and his head coach felt like Michael was under-recruited. Michael would deal with a lot of adversity at Indiana, which makes what he would do later on in his career even more impressive. During his freshman year, he got to play in 3 games, but would tear his ACL and would redshirt. Heading into 2019, Penix would win the starting quarterback job under offensive coordinator Kalen DeBoer. Penix was electric in his first 2 starts of the season, throwing for 523 yards and 3 touchdowns in blowout wins, would miss the Ohio State and UConn games with an undisclosed injury before returning against Michigan State. He played well in the next 4 games, but a clavicle injury required surgery, would lead to him only playing in 6 games that season. He finished the season 5-1 as a starting quarterback, throwing for 1,394 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. In the shortened 2020 season, he played amazing, leading Indiana to a 5-1 record and a top 10 ranking before having his season ended once again by another torn ACL. He finished the year throwing for 1,645 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions, while also rushing for 2 touchdowns on the ground. He returned in 2021 hoping for a strong and healthy season, would only be able to play in 5 games, sustaining a shoulder injury that ended his season early. As the 2021 season came to a close, Indiana finished 2-10, losing all the remaining games without Michael. Penix was mentally and physically crushed, explained to Pac-12 Network. The day of the game, I'd wake up and I would just lay on the floor and pray to God to protect me that day because I knew where my head was at the time. It was a lot of tears. He had fought back from 4 straight season-ending injuries, but felt like it was time for a change of scenery, so he decided to enter the transfer portal, where he was rated as a 3-star recruit. He explained his decision to enter the transfer portal, saying, "I just feel like, for me, I was trying to find a new home. I wanted to just get a fresh start. That was my biggest reason, just trying to find myself and myself as a person, as a player. When I was in the portal, Coach DeBoer, he was always someone that as soon as I hit the portal, I'm like, where is he going? Where is he at the time?" Due to his injury history, only 2 schools would reach out to him, UCF and Washington. The decision seemed easy for Penix, as choosing Washington meant reuniting with Kalen DeBoer. Penix explained to Sports Illustrated, "I just feel like we've always had that trust and that belief in one another since our time at Indiana. Even though it was short, I feel like we built a great relationship through that time. So I feel like I knew what I was getting, and he had a feeling what he knew he was getting with me as well. The biggest thing was just making sure it was a good fit for myself, and it definitely was. Obviously, as you could see. Little Mike helped rebuild a struggling Washington team, leading them to an 11-2 record in 2022, while throwing for 4,641 yards, 31 touchdowns, and only 8 interceptions, while also rushing for 4 touchdowns on the ground. He was named 2nd team All-Pac-12 and AP Comeback Player of the Year. Most importantly, he remained healthy throughout the season, restoring his confidence. Michael chose to return to Washington this past year, but would have his best season yet, throwing for 4,903 yards, 36 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions, while also rushing for 3 touchdowns on the ground. He was named an All-American and finished as a Heisman Trophy runner-up, which I feel he should have won, and led Washington to the Pac-12 title and an undefeated record heading into the college football playoff. In the semifinals, they beat Texas but would lose to Michigan in the championship game to finish the year 14-1. Once again, Michael Penix Jr. was able to stay healthy and may have launched himself into the first-round contention for the 2024 NFL Draft next week. I am extremely excited to see how he does in the NFL, and I hope his injuries are all in the rearview mirror. Spencer Rattler grew up in the Phoenix, Arizona area and began playing football at the age of 7. By the age of 11, Rattler was already garnering college attention. He caught the eye of Dane Zupke, Pinnacle High School's head football coach, when he was visiting the Boys and Girls Basketball Club. Rattler later attended Pinnacle High School, which is located in North Phoenix, Arizona. Everyone knew who Rattler was, and many had high expectations for him entering high school. Rattler was not supposed to be the starter his freshman year, but when the expected starting quarterback quit the team over the summer, Rattler, at 14 years old, was thrust into the starting job. Rattler's first game of his career came against Chandler High School. This would be part of the video where I say he exploded onto the scene as a freshman in his first game. That is not what happened. Rattler instead threw 3 interceptions, 0 touchdowns, and only 133 passing yards en route to a 56-10 loss. Rattler did not let that game define his season, and he shook off the nerves going into the next 3 games of the season. In those 3 games, Rattler threw for 798 passing yards, 9 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. Rattler finished his freshman season with 2,300 passing yards, 19 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions, while Pinnacle finished the season 4-5. Rattler's first level of national exposure came during the first week of his sophomore season. In the game against Spasha, which was televised on ESPN, Rattler led his team to a 49-41 win, throwing for over 300 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. Aside from an impressive stats, the most amazing part of that performance was the fact Rattler did it with a broken hand. Rattler was playing the game no matter what, and had Pinnacle lost, it wasn't going to be used as an excuse because he didn't believe in excuses. In Rattler's first 3 seasons at Pinnacle, the team improved each season. During his junior year, Pinnacle finished 9-4, and Rattler threw for 45 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and nearly 4,000 passing yards. In 3 years, Rattler had thrown for 9,000 passing yards, 93 touchdowns, and 30 interceptions. He impressed everyone with his pinpoint accuracy and said he used to be compared to Baker Mayfield, but a lot more athletic. Before his senior year, Rattler attended the Elite 11 quarterback camp and was named Elite 11 MVP for his performance. Going to his senior year, Rattler started in Season 3 of QB1 Beyond the Lights. He also had 2 goals for the season: win a state championship and Gatorade Player of the Year. In 7 games, Spencer Rattler threw for 1,863 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions, while also rushing for 139 yards and 3 more touchdowns on the ground, but did not play in Pinnacle's last 5 games of the season due to being suspended. As a result, Pinnacle lost to Perry in the semifinals of the state playoffs. Rattler finished his high school career with the Arizona record for passing yards with 11,083 passing yards and 116 passing touchdowns. He also rushed for over 1,000 yards and 14 touchdowns in his college career. Rattler was an All-American Bowl selection, and between October 12th, his last high school game, and the All-American game, Rattler packed on 20 pounds with his workout program. During the All-American game, Rattler scored 2 touchdowns and impressed in the second half. Coming out of high school, according to 24/7 Sports Composite, Spencer Rattler was a 5-star recruit who was the best pro-style quarterback, best player in Arizona, and 11th best player nationally. He received over 14 different Division I offers from the likes of Alabama, Miami, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, and Texas. Rattler worked with quarterback guru Mike Giovando back in high school. Giovando had a relationship with Oklahoma assistant coach Tim Kish that went way back and decided to call him to talk about a special player he was working with. Mike called him saying, "I've got this freshman. You really got to come out and take a look at this guy." Kish laughed and couldn't believe what his friend was saying, but trusted his judgment. Kish, who had 4 decades working in college football, went to go visit Pinnacle High School, telling The Athletic, "I'm not lying to you. He could make every throw as a freshman that you think a senior should make. He's that good. He could throw the deep out, the curl, go routes, slants, you name it, he could throw it." Kish brought the intel he collected back to offensive coordinator Lincoln Riley, who reacted the same way he did to Giovando. Then Riley watched Rattler's film and was instantly impressed. Riley would call and extend Rattler an offer when he was 14 years old, before he ever broke any records or starred in any Netflix shows. Rattler would also collect scholarship offers from Arizona and UCLA throughout his freshman year. Giovando told The Athletic, "I don't really promote 9th graders all that much because I know coaches are going to say, no, not yet. But I had enough faith in this kid, so I decided it was the right time to reach out to a few people." Kish developed a strong relationship with Rattler and still stays in touch with him even though he retired in 2018. Rattler would commit to Oklahoma in 2017 right after Riley was named the head coach after Bob Stoops retired, and never wavered on his commitment. He became Oklahoma's first 5-star quarterback commit out of high school since Rhett Ballmer in 2004. Rattler was hoping to become the first true freshman starter at Oklahoma since 1990, but surprisingly did not decide to enroll early. This was partly due to his high school's high academic standards, which made it an improbability of happening, and Rattler also wanted to enjoy his senior year. When Rattler got to Oklahoma in the spring, he had to compete for the starting job against former Alabama quarterback Jalen Hurts, who had recently transferred to Oklahoma. Hurts won the starting quarterback job and led Oklahoma to the college football playoffs, where they would lose to LSU in the semifinal game. Rattler played in 3 games during the 2019 season. Against South Dakota, Rattler went 4 for 4, throwing for 50 passing yards and his first career touchdown. Against Texas Tech, he went 2 for 4, throwing for 4 yards and rushing for 23 yards. In the semifinal game against LSU, Rattler completed 1 of 3 passes for 8 yards while also rushing for 8 yards. Rattler finished his freshman season completing 7 of his 11 passes for 81 yards and 1 touchdown. Rattler would beat out Tanner Mordecai for the starting quarterback job going into 2020, becoming the first Oklahoma commit out of high school to start for the Sooners since 2014. The last quarterback to do that for Oklahoma was Trevor Knight. Expectations were high for Rattler, and he would experience some growing pains. Although he threw for 387 yards and 4 touchdowns against Kansas State, he also threw 3 interceptions, and the Sooners would be upset by them. Against Texas, Rattler was benched for a period of time before returning and leading the Sooners to an overtime win. After being benched, Rattler would get hot, throwing for over 200 yards in 6 games and scoring multiple touchdowns through the air and on the ground combined the rest of the season. He also cleaned up his turnover issues. After throwing 5 interceptions in Oklahoma's first 4 games, Rattler only threw 2 interceptions the rest of the season. Oklahoma finished the season on an 8-game win streak, beating a depleted Florida team in the bowl game. Rattler finished the season throwing for 3,031 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions, while also adding 160 yards and 6 touchdowns on the ground. He was named the Davey O'Brien Award semifinalist while also being named National Freshman of the Year by CBS Sports. He became the second Oklahoma quarterback to earn FWAA Freshman All-American status, with the other player being Sam Bradford, and was a first-team AP All-Big 12 selection, an organization co-Big 12 Newcomer Player of the Year, along with an academic All-Big 12 first-team honoree. Going into the 2021 season, Spencer Rattler is viewed as the favorite to win the Heisman, while some believe this year's Oklahoma team should win the national championship. Rattler is also viewed as the top quarterback prospect for the 2022 NFL Draft, with many believe he will go in the top half of the draft, and some even think he could be the first overall pick. Spencer Rattler would enter the 2021 season as a Heisman Trophy favorite and start off the season playing well, but would struggle against Texas and was benched in favor of Caleb Williams. Rattler would finish the year throwing for 1,483 yards, 11 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, while also rushing for 3 touchdowns on the ground, going 6-0 as a starter but never getting the starting spot back after Williams took over. He would choose to enter the transfer portal going to South Carolina, where he would take over the starting quarterback job, leading them to an 8-5 record while throwing for 3,026 yards, 18 touchdowns and 12 interceptions, also rushing for 3 touchdowns on the ground. He seemingly revived his career, leading the Gamecocks to upset wins over Tennessee and Clemson, who were both ranked in the top 10 at the time. There were high expectations for Rattler and the Gamecocks heading into the 2023 season. South Carolina would go 5-7, but Rattler would impress, throwing for 3,186 yards, 19 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, while also rushing for 4 touchdowns on the ground. His season was described by some as one of the best quarterback seasons in school history, among the country's best signal callers. He would impress at the Senior Bowl and is projected to be a third-round pick. Michael Pratt was born on September 30th, 2001, and grew up in Boca Raton, Florida. Pratt never played football growing up, nor did he even go to private or public school. Instead, he was homeschooled by his parents through the 8th grade. Pratt's mother had homeschooled her kids since their eldest daughter was in 3rd grade. Michael loved the freedom being homeschooled brought, telling NOLA.com, "I got to wake up whenever, and then really I just had a list of stuff I had to do. As soon as I got those things done, I'd go to the beach, go fishing, and do stuff like that every day." Heading into his freshman year, Pratt's father, who was a general contractor at the time, moved to Virginia to go to law school, and his mother went back to work full-time as a teacher and then later a principal at a private Christian middle school. Although he had been homeschooled, Pratt was actually very good at meeting new people and making new friends, doing so throughout his childhood. So when the transition to high school came, it wasn't as difficult as one might think. When Pratt arrived at Boca Raton High School, he decided to try to convince his parents to let him play football. He played baseball growing up and was a pretty good pitcher and shortstop, believing he was better at that than any other sport he would ever play, but he was burnt out on playing baseball and needed a change of scenery. His parents were heartbroken by this news, as they had always been a baseball family, but they understood. Pratt's father had always kept him from playing football because of the injury risks linked to the game, but his parents had finally conceded after all the major changes. Pratt played junior varsity as a freshman and instantly fell in love with football, quickly developing a passion for the game. He chose to play quarterback due to his pitching background and began to figure out ways to improve his game. He realized his release was too long because of the baseball background and figured a way to fix that issue. Michael would win the starting job his sophomore year and threw for 1,208 yards and 12 touchdowns, while also rushing for 447 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground as a junior, leading Boca Raton to a 5-5 record. Although he was committed to the school he wanted to go to, he felt he needed to be better and play against better competition, so he decided to transfer to Deerfield Beach in August of his senior year. What made this decision intriguing was the fact that Deerfield already had an established starting quarterback in Deron King, who was committed to Southern Miss at the time. Pratt told the Palm Beach Post, "I wanted to go somewhere where there was another good quarterback, where I'd have to go 110% each and every single practice, every rep." Honestly, it played out really well. Pratt would not just compete when he arrived at Deerfield, he would actually dethrone King as a school starting quarterback, would suffer an early season abductor injury that sidelined him for a few weeks. Pratt was not afraid of the quarterback battle or even having to be a backup, explaining, "This was a big step and my main purpose was to prepare for college. Once I get to college, there's going to be 4 or 5 other quarterbacks over there. I'm going to have to learn how to beat whoever out." Deerfield was a major step up in competition, being ranked the 13th best program in the state of Florida and the 77th best team in the nation at the time, according to Max Preps. Deerfield dominated throughout the season, outscoring opponents 436-39 in their first 9 wins of the season. In the regional semifinal, Pratt threw for 158 passing yards and 2 touchdowns while also rushing for a touchdown in their 44-6 win over Palm Beach Central. He would finish his senior year throwing for 1,380 passing yards and 16 touchdowns, while also rushing for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns according to Max Pratt. They would finish the year 10-4, losing in the Class 8A semifinals to Columbus 28-21. Coming out of high school according to 24/7 Sports Composite, Michael Pratt was a 3-star recruit who was the 47th best pro-style quarterback and 1,364th best player in the 2020 recruiting class. He received over 15 different Division I offers from the likes of Buffalo, Florida Atlantic, Northern Illinois, Toledo, and Tulane, as well as a handful of Ivy League schools. Michael chose Tulane after taking an unofficial visit to the campus and proceeded to develop a relationship with the players already on the roster. On his official visit, Pratt made linebacker Nick Anderson a believer, with Anderson explaining, "I met Mike and I could see the fire in his eyes. He was ready to come in, compete, and battle with toughness." Things were on the up and up for Pratt, but he would also experience tragedy around this time period. Pratt's close friend, Bryce Gowdy, would be killed after being hit by a freight train on December 30th, 2019. Gowdy had signed to play at Georgia Tech and had become Pratt's closest friend during his one semester at Deerfield, with Pratt explaining, "It was devastating. He was my guy when I was at Deerfield. He pushed me the most out of anybody after practice. Even the days when I was exhausted or not in a good mood, he was always making sure that me and him were getting 5 extra fade balls before I went home. Stuff like that." Pratt would request to switch his number from 13 to 7 in honor of his friend, and got Gaudy's unofficial motto, "Believe," with the 7 intersecting where the L is tattooed on his arm. Michael Pratt would enroll at Tulane during the wild period of 2020, when many wondered whether there was actually going to be a season. He impressed early on and even took over the starting quarterback job 3 games into his freshman year after starter Keon Howard, who was a senior, got hurt against Southern Miss. Throughout his freshman year, Pratt would continue to improve week in and week out. He finished his freshman year going 4-5 as a starter, throwing for 1,806 yards, 20 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, while also rushing for 229 yards and 8 touchdowns on the ground. Tulane would struggle in 2021, going 2-9, with Pratt as their starting quarterback, and finished the year 2-10, after being displaced by Hurricane Ida for the first part of the 2021 season. They were living in a hotel in Birmingham, ordering Uber Eats to feed the players, and had no real access to fitness equipment, with colleges revoking their access to gyms due to an uptick in a certain word I don't know if I could actually say on YouTube anymore, cases increasing. Pratt would finish the year throwing for 2,390 yards, 21 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, while also rushing for 5 touchdowns on the ground. But 2022 would be the year both Michael Pratt and Tulane would break out, turning all but 3 starters. They started off the season 6-1, making it the first time since 1998 that they were bowl eligible and ranked in the top 25 by mid-October. They would proceed to win the Cotton Bowl over a Caleb Williams-led USC team, and Pratt finished his junior year throwing for 3,009 yards, 27 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, while also rushing for 478 yards and 10 touchdowns on the ground. Tulane would finish the year 11-2, and Pratt would be named second-team All-AAC. During his senior year, Pratt would play in 11 of Tulane's 14 games, going 10-1 as a starter, losing to SMU in the conference title game. Pratt would choose to sit out the bowl game to finish his senior year, throwing for 2,406 yards, 22 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, while also rushing for 5 touchdowns on the ground. He would be named first-team All-AAC and AAC Offensive Player of the Year. Pratt finished his Tulane career throwing for 9,611 yards, 90 touchdowns and 26 interceptions, while also rushing for 1,147 yards and 28 touchdowns on the ground, finishing as one of the greatest quarterbacks in school history. Pratt believes the culture built by Willie Fritz and the turnaround they went through makes him a strong prospect, explaining, I think one of the biggest things is, who you are as a person. Coach Fritz did an awesome job bringing a great job to the program and really creating a culture. In his interview, Pratt put a real emphasis on the importance of mentality, character, and leadership in the NFL. He is projected to be a middle-round draft pick and could be a fun player to keep an eye on when it comes to this year's NFL draft class. Devin Leary was born on September 10th, 1999, and grew up in Sicklerville, New Jersey, which is located in South Jersey, just southeast of Philadelphia. From a young age, Leary was a competitive kid, with his mom realizing it when they would play certain card games together. Devin loved to win and would do anything and everything to win. Devin's father and uncle played football in college, while his brother currently plays football at Illinois, and his other siblings all played something growing up. Sports, and specifically football, was always important to the Leary family, so much so, his first toy was a football when he was a baby. The kid was destined to play football at a high level one day. Devin was raised under the mindset of when you start something, you finish it, which was the same rule my family had when I was growing up. He played football, baseball, hockey, basketball, and wrestled. He didn't care for wrestling that much, but since he had started it, he had to finish at least one season. Devin began playing football when he was 7 and quickly fell in love with the game. Devin's uncle taught him how to throw a football, and ironically, his first start in high school as a freshman was against the school his uncle coached at, leading Timber Creek to a victory. When Devin was a sophomore, he would choose to attend a camp at NC State with some teammates, where he quickly drew the attention of assistant coach George McDonald, who was responsible for recruiting the state of New Jersey. He also drew the attention of NC State offensive coordinator Eli Drinkwitz, who was also the Wolfpack's quarterback coach. Coach Drink told Leary that he would be evaluating him during his junior season. During his sophomore year, Devin would throw for 2,605 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions, leading Timber Creek to a 9-3 record into the New Jersey South Group 4 state title, where they beat Shawnee 29-24. As a junior, Devin would break the New Jersey record for passing yards in a season and touchdowns in a season, throwing for 3,688 yards and 48 touchdowns, and led Timber Creek to their second consecutive South Jersey Group 4 championship. Leary was named the NJ.com Football Player of the Year as well as the Gatorade Player of the Year for New Jersey. Legendary South Jersey head coach Sal Marquez from Delsey and Tim Gushu from Shawnee believe that Leary was the greatest quarterback in South Jersey football history at the high school level. Gushu told NJ.com, "He's an outstanding quarterback. I have a ton of respect for him. In my 40 years, and I'm talking Glenn Foley, Kevin Foley, a couple of Holy Cross guys, Kyle Horner from Cherokee, he's a solid individual and one of the best. If he's not the best, he's darn close. He's an extraordinary athlete. He's cerebral, smart. He's not just throwing them up. He's very smooth and very well coached." While Marchese told the media, "He's one of the best I've ever seen. When I was in my early 20s, I saw Tony Sacca play. He's probably the best I've seen since Sacca. He not only can throw, he's smart. He has poise. He's a big timer." After Leary threw for 6 touchdowns against them in their Week 1 matchup that year. Leary would throw 4 interceptions all season, and Timber Creek would finish the year ranked as the 3rd best team in the state of New Jersey. Throughout this all, Leary focused on staying humble, saying, "I just play my own game the way I've been taught. It hasn't really hit me yet. I'm aware of the records, but I try to just take all the hype and put it in the back of my mind." Heading into his senior season, Leary looked to have another great year as he carried a 16-game win streak into it. Leary would lead Timber Creek to 25 straight wins, or they would be upset by Delsey in the semifinals of the South Group 3 playoffs. He would finish his year on a high note, though, when Timber Creek beat Winslow 42-14 to finish the year 10-1. Point of Max Prep, Leary finished his senior year throwing for 2,863 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions, while also rushing for 344 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. He was once again named the Gatorade Player of the Year for the state of New Jersey, and finished his high school career throwing for the most yards in state history with 9,672, career passing yards, and touchdowns with 117. Coming out of high school according to 24/7 Sports Composite, Devin Leary was a 4-star recruit who was the 16th best pro-style quarterback and 372nd best player in the 2018 recruiting cycle. Received over 15 different Division I offers from the likes of Baylor, Iowa, NC State, Pittsburgh, and Rutgers. He would commit to NC State on April 6, 2017, but as the recruiting process went on, his rankings began to skyrocket. Head coach David Doran told The Athletic, "Once we got the commitment, we had to hang on. He went from 3 stars up, especially as he got an invite to Elite 11 and things like that." Drinkwitz, now the head coach at Missouri, remembers zeroing in on Leary as the guy to take the baton from Ryan Finley, the starting quarterback at the time. There were similarities in the terms of style and accuracy, but Drink felt Leary had a bigger arm. He also had the it factor, with nothing really phasing him. Although there was a late push by Penn State, with his crystal ball even being rated at 100% there, Leary would stay committed to NC State and enrolled that June. Devin Leary struggled during his freshman year redshirting as he had never not played football. In that season, Ryan Finley had a stranglehold on the starting quarterback job, and it was the first time Leary was not starting as he was the future. Doran even told The Athletic that Leary was not a very good redshirt quarterback. It was really hard for Leary, who now had to focus on running the scout team and putting on muscle. His parents would humble him when he would call, as they basically told him to trust the process. Leary told The Athletic, "You kind of get a reality check. You realize, okay, maybe you aren't as ready as you thought you were." Finley would be drafted in the 4th round of the 2019 NFL Draft, but once again Leary found himself on the bench for most of the 2019 season. This time around, though, he stayed focused on the process, and later that season would become the first redshirt freshman to start a game for NC State since Russell Wilson in 2008. He finished the 2019 season throwing for 1,219 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions, going 0-5 as a starter. After the season, Leary was told by Doran that the starting quarterback job was his to lose, so as 2020 got off to a rough start that offseason, Leary would remain focused and took on a leadership role. Leary was ready to go and excited for the 2020 season, but just 2 weeks before the start of the season, he would be contact traced and was forced to quarantine for 14 days, although he never tested positive. This was the second time Leary dealt with that offseason. Second string quarterback Bailey Hockman was able to practice the whole time, so new offensive coordinator Tim Beck, who never really got to work with Leary up to this point, chose to make Hockman the starter. Doran felt starting Devin after the chaotic offseason would have been setting him up for failure. Leary understood and remained ready coming in during the second game of the season and starting the next 3, but against Duke, he would have his season cut short when he broke his fibula on a helmet-to-helmet hit that saw the safety come down awkwardly on Leary's leg. He needed an air cast and required surgery. Leary finished the year going 3-1 as a starting quarterback, throwing for 890 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. When everything seemed to be going so well, Leary would get that reality check, dealing with his first major injury in his career. Leary would be cleared for the spring ball, winning the starting job once again and impressed, throwing for 3,433 yards and 35 touchdowns to just 5 interceptions in 2021, leading NC State to a 9-3 record, but their bowl game against UCLA would be canceled. In 2022, he would only get to play in 6 games, having his season ended by a pectoral injury, throwing for 1,265 yards, 11 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, while also rushing for 3 touchdowns on the ground. After the season, Leary would choose to enter the transfer portal, being rated as one of the best transfer portal quarterbacks. After the injury cut his season short and messed up his draft stock, Leary decided he needed a fresh start and chose to enter the transfer portal, committing to Kentucky, who was replacing Will Levis. Leary impressed during the offseason, and there was a lot of hype surrounding him heading into the season, and he led them to a 5-0 start, but had some ups and downs. Kentucky would struggle down the stretch, going 2-6 to finish the year 7-6, while Leary threw for 2,440 yards, 23 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, going 7-5 as the starter, and opting out of the bowl game. Heading into the 2024 NFL Draft, Leary is projected to be a 3rd to 4th round NFL draft pick, who could be an interesting player to keep an eye on. As a fellow Jersey boy, I hope he finds success and a lot of it, and I can't wait to see where he ends up. Joe Milton III was born in Pahokee, Florida on March 6, 2000, and he and his mother would move to Orlando when he was in his freshman year of high school. Milton showed flashes of his talent early in his high school career. Going into high school though, Milton credited his uncle and other Pop Warner coaches for helping him grow into a man and developing him as a quarterback. Kyle Hayes took over as head coach for Olympia High School in 2015 and realized that he had a special quarterback on his hands. That was not what his original thoughts on Milton were at first though, as he told the Sentinel, "When I first met him, he told me he was a wide receiver, but I saw him throwing the football around during a parent meeting. I asked him, 'What position you play?' He said, 'Wide receiver,' and I was like, 'Yeah, okay.' Then I got him in practice, and like the second day of practice, I told him, 'Hey, throw this 10-yard out pattern from the opposite hash. That probably is one of the hardest throws to make,' and he zipped that thing right in there. So I eased him into it, but I already knew he was going to be a big-time quarterback." Milton became the starter for his high school when the then starter was unable to establish consistency. He impressed many with his size as he stood at 6'4" and weighed 210 pounds at the time. He told the Orlando Sentinel, "People never wanted to put me at a different position. They just knew put me around the ball and I just wanted to have fun. Like when I first came to Olympia, I knew quarterback was my position. I never really looked at going to receiver nor any other position because I could control the ball." Milton wasn't given the starting role as a freshman at first because they had a senior quarterback at the time who was told it was his job to lose. Well, said senior quarterback would lose the job. Milton was also coached by A.G. Wazim, who was the Florida director of the U.S. Army All-American game, at the time as a 7-on-7 coach. Wazim took Milton and several other prospects on a bus tour during the summer of 2016, where Milton would impress Wazim and coaches alike. Wazim told The Athletic, "We were at South Carolina and Joe was standing at the 20-yard line. I ran down to the other goal line and called for the ball. He got it to me, standing still, like it was nothing. He got an offer that day. Even back then, there were things Joe could do physically that a lot of NFL quarterbacks just can't do." Throughout high school, Milton would complete passes that would make Patrick Mahomes blush, and his recruitment quickly exploded. Hayes recalls how intense the recruitment process got for his young quarterback after one season as the starter and a summer of extensive camp appearances. Milton finished said season throwing for 1,115 yards and 8 touchdowns, while also rushing for 3 touchdowns on the ground. Joe Rexrod from The Athletic wrote back in August of 2021, that included, as Hayes recalled it, nearly 4 hours in one meeting in his office with Heupel, then offensive coordinator for Missouri, that led the SEC and ranked 13th nationally with 500.5 yards per game in 2016. As a junior, Joe Milton threw for 1,543 yards and 17 touchdowns and competed in the Elite 11 that following offseason, where he cemented himself as one of the best young quarterbacks in the country. He finished his senior year throwing for 1,317 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions, while also rushing for 262 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground. Coming out of high school, according to 24/7 Sports Composite, Joe Milton was a 4-star recruit who was the 9th best pro-style quarterback and 204th best player in the 2018 recruiting cycle, standing at 6'5" and weighing 230 pounds. He received over 25 different Division I offers from the likes of Florida, Georgia, LSU, Miami, and Michigan. Ultimately, Jim Harbaugh and Michigan, spearheaded by then passing game coordinator Pep Hamilton, landed Milton's commitment in May of 2017 over Georgia and Florida. Hayes told The Athletic Joe really liked Pep Hamilton. He was a huge part of his recruitment, game changer. And Milton liked Coach Harbaugh too, a quarterback guy, coached in the NFL, played in the NFL, so if you want to be an NFL quarterback, why wouldn't you like him? Michigan loved Milton too, who quickly impressed when he arrived on campus at Michigan. According to scouts, his game pointed to his athleticism, which allowed him to pick up extra yards with his legs and extend plays when the pocket broke down. He also had a strong throwing arm, highlighted by his ability to hit receivers in stride on the deep ball. Milton impressed early at Michigan, earning many compliments from Jim Harbaugh and the media, but would redshirt 2018 behind Shea Patterson. That offseason, Milton, fellow Michigan quarterback Brandon Peters, and 2025 quarterback prospect Jackson Hamilton, Pep Hamilton's son, started getting extra work in with Michigan-based quarterback coach Donovan Dooley. Dooley was a former college coach and a friend of Wazim. Dooley founded Quarterback University in 2010 and continues to work with Milton throughout his college career. Things didn't start off very well though, because at first he was not very impressed with Milton. He saw how much of a quote-unquote specimen he was, but he felt Milton needed reps and refinement. In 2019, Pep Hamilton was not retained by Michigan, and Milton was forced to adapt to new offensive coordinator Josh Gaddis' new offense. He sat behind Shea Patterson for a second season in a row that season, but beat out former 4-star recruit Dylan McCaffrey for the starting quarterback job in 2020. It did not surprise some Michigan assistant coaches who told ESPN's Tom Van Haren when Milton signed in 2018 that he would be Harbaugh's best quarterback at Michigan. After the job was won in 2020, Gaddis cited Milton's leadership, command of the offense, and peckinent for plays that would be wild plays on Sunday, and teammates spoke highly of him, with then Michigan senior defensive tackle Carlo Kemp telling reporters, "We got a quarterback leading the offense, leading the entire team in a very special way." Milton impressed in his debut, completing 15 of his 22 passes for 225 yards and a touchdown, while also rushing for 58 yards and a score, while Michigan rolled Minnesota 49-24. Minnesota head coach PJ Fleck described Milton as a once-in-a-decade talent. Milton would tear a ligament in his right throwing thumb on the second offensive player of the second game of the season, a 27-24 loss to Michigan State. He took off on a third down scramble and had his right hand ripped off the football by a Michigan defensive lineman, as he hit the turf hard. He still threw for 300 yards that game and threw for 344 yards a week later in a loss to Indiana. The injury was not mentioned at all throughout the season, and Milton would be replaced by backup quarterback Cade McNamara after struggling against Wisconsin and Rutgers. Hayes did not like the way his former star pupil was being treated, telling The Athletic in 2021, "I want to make it clear, I'm not speaking for Joe here, but I'm going to call a spade a spade. Hell, at this point. I think he became a victim of circumstance. He's a young man, he's getting bashed in the papers, and all of a sudden it looks like the kid can't fucking throw the ball. Excuse me, but I get emotional. He's like my son. So the media and fans, they're going to say what they're going to say. but when the school doesn't say anything about it, I thought Joe got put in a corner, and I thought it was unfair to him. Well, Dooley said, and Joe wasn't going to say anything. He was trying to be a warrior, trying to fight through it, but it was everything. Imagine trying to hold a football and you can't feel it and you can't put pressure on your thumb. That's going to make you unsure as a passer. You look how well he played at Minnesota, and then people are asking, why did he have such a drop-off after that? Well, come on, man. Why do you think that happened? That January, the Detroit News posted a picture of Milton wearing a cast and reported a thumb surgery. After the season and after graduating in 3 years from the University of Michigan, Milton decided to transfer to Tennessee. He arrived in Tennessee with Virginia Tech transfer Hendon Hooker as well, and they proceeded to compete in the quarterback battle during camp. Milton would ultimately win the starting job, leading the Vols to a win over Bowling Green, but getting hurt in a loss to Pittsburgh. Hooker came in to replace Milton and impressed enough to hold on to the starting job. The narrative that formed over the last 2 years has been that Milton lost the job to Hooker. Milton was quick to point out at SEC Media Day in Nashville this summer that he didn't lose the job to Hooker. Instead, Milton noted that he was injured and couldn't play. Milton told the press, "I was hurt. I couldn't go back in the game no more." So Hendon did his job. He went in there, he executed, and he kept the offense rolling. What can I say if the coaches chose to stick with Hooker? I mean, he did his job. He never held any animosity towards Hooker or the coaching staff for the way things were handled the past 2 years, and he continued to prepare week in and week out as if he was the starter, although he sat behind Hooker. During the South Carolina game in 2022, Hooker sustained a season-ending knee injury, which led to Milton starting the rest of the season. In his first start against Vanderbilt, he threw for 147 yards and a touchdown in a 56-0 win, while also leading the Volunteers to a 31-14 win over number 7 Clemson in the Orange Bowl, where he earned MVP honors for the game behind his 251 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. After the injury to start his Tennessee career, Milton began to wonder whether he was good enough to play at the Power 5 level for about a week. He looked himself in the mirror a week later and began to regain his confidence. He helped cap off a historic season for Tennessee and finished the season throwing for almost 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. Now this team is unquestionably his after Milton sat and waited his turn. There's a lot of hype for Milton and Tennessee heading into the season. Can the Vols build off the 11-win campaign? Can Tennessee sustain success and keep plugging along after losing so many key players to the NFL? Is Joe Milton truly the guy people think he can be? People are projecting Milton as a top prospect for the 2024 NFL Draft, comparing him to Anthony Richardson. Brandon Owen from Volunteer Country wrote back at the beginning of July, Richardson measures out at 6'4" and 240 pounds, running a 4.43 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine. He also has immense arm talent with a ton of downfield upside. Similarly, Milton stands at 6'5" and 243 pounds. He ran a 4.8 second 40 at the 2018 Elite 11, though the number may be outdated. The real draw is Milton's arm, which isn't every bit as strong as Richardson's. Milton's sheer arm talent has wowed even Peyton Manning, one of the greatest NFL quarterbacks of all time. The legendary signal caller stated that a 40-yard throw takes a flick of the wrist for Milton. An NFL scouting director raved about his arm, calling it one of the strongest football arms he has ever seen. That physical profile is enough for many scouts to view Milton as a potential first-round pick in next year's NFL Draft. Jordan Travis was born on May 2, 2000 and grew up in West Palm Beach, Florida. His older brother Devin is a second baseman for the Toronto Blue Jays. Devin played for Florida State and was drafted in the 2012 MLB Draft by the Detroit Tigers before being traded to Toronto in 2014. Jordan was 10 when his brother was a freshman in 2010, and he was enamored by Florida State. Devin told The Athletic he was basically bred into it as a child. I guess he really never looked back. Jordan being my little brother, and me disliking schools like Florida and Miami, and him coming to the games and hearing fans scream and all that, he really took to it. At the time, Jordan was playing Pop Warner football and played catch outside Doak Campbell Stadium and in front of the baseball stadium with his cousin JoJo. He was thrilled when he met then Florida State quarterback E.J. Manuel, and though Devin already had moved on, Jordan came to idolize Seminoles quarterback Jameis Winston in 2013. Jordan wanted to be an athlete at Florida State too, like Devin. Rather than playing in front of the crowds at Dick Hauser though, he wanted to hear the roar of the crowd at Doak. Jordan started his high school career at Palm Beach Central, where he became the starting quarterback his sophomore year. This is the part of the video where I share how he lit up the stat sheet and led his team to the state title game. That's not the case with Jordan though. Jordan only completed 45.4% of his passes for 861 yards, 3 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, while rushing for 482 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Palm Beach Central finished 2-8 that season, and he decided to transfer to Benjamin School, a private school in North Palm Beach. His offensive coordinator at Benjamin was former Marshall and Florida quarterback Eric Kresser. Kresser transferred to Marshall his senior year, and with future NFL Hall of Famer wide receiver Randy Moss as his primary target, he passed for 3,400 yards and 35 touchdowns to lead the Thundering Herd to a 15-0 record in the Division I AA championship that fall. Kresser spent time in the NFL and as a private coach before he became the offensive coordinator at Benjamin, and after evaluating Travis when he first arrived, he believed the young quarterback had a lot of ability but was still very raw. Jordan would make a tremendous improvement in his junior year with the help of Kresser. Together they worked on basic mechanics, worked on footwork, and learned the timing of the routes that they would run on specific plays. They worked on studying film as the season approached. Devin told The Athletic he was pretty instrumental in his development as a quarterback. He really taught Jordan to not just be the athlete Jordan, but the Jordan that can really sling that thing. In his first game of the regular season that fall against Belle Glades Day, Travis passed for 303 yards and 3 touchdowns and rushed for 85 yards and 2 scores. Most importantly, he led a 2-minute drill at the end of the game to secure the 43-41 win. Jordan never let anything faze him, with his father telling The Athletic he would score 5 touchdowns in a game, and the highest thing you'll see from him is coming down and jumping and giving someone a high five. I'm like, come on man, you gotta get pumped. He also didn't let interceptions faze him. He completed 57.4% of his passes for 2,017 yards, 21 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, while also rushing for 384 yards and 11 touchdowns on the ground, leading the Buccaneers to a 7-3 record. He took another giant leap forward his senior year, completing 61% of his passes for 2,190 yards, 24 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, while also rushing for 905 yards and 16 touchdowns on the ground. He led Benjamin to the state playoffs, but lost in the Class 3A regional final to eventual state champions Hollywood Chaminade Madonna. Coming out of high school, according to 24/7 Sports Composite, Jordan Travis was a 3-star recruit who was the 25th best dual-threat quarterback and the 889th best player nationally. He received 12 different Division I offers from the likes of Baylor, Georgia, Louisville, UCF, and USF, but the offer he never received was from Florida State. He made an official visit to Louisville in January of 2018 and signed with Bobby Petrino and the Cardinals the next month. Jordan sat behind Malik Cunningham and Jawan Pass during his freshman year at Louisville as they got blown out by Alabama, barely beat Indiana State and Western Kentucky, and then everything fell apart for the Cardinals. They lost 7 straight games, which caused Petrino to be fired, and they finished the season 2-10. Travis played in 3 games even though Malik Cunningham and Jawan Pass struggled. That November, Jordan entered the transfer portal. Devin spoke on his brother's transferring, saying it was something that he and my family really struggled hard on. My dad, specifically, he's very much so a believer in wherever you start, you don't stop until you're finished. Some very serious issues came up where it just made sense to where they finally made the decision together. Jordan and my parents, that it was in his best interest to go into the transfer portal and figure out what was going to be the next step. And they really weren't sure what was going to come from it. Kendall Briles had recruited Jordan to Baylor and Florida Atlantic, but was now the offensive coordinator at Jordan's dream school, Florida State. After Briles was hired, that old connection was rekindled, and 4 days after that, Travis transferred to Florida State. The Travis family says Briles is the reason their son is at Florida State now. Travis fits his system very well with his skill set, which allowed him to use his arm and legs in an up-tempo spread attack. Finally, Travis was playing at his dream school. Jordan never thought this would ever happen, telling the media, "After I went to Louisville, I was planning on being there for the rest of my college career." But, once again, God works in mysterious ways. Jordan felt immediately at home. Florida State needed a starting quarterback immediately after their dismissed DeAndre Francois was dismissed from the program. Everything seemed to be going in Travis's way heading into spring practice. He just needed to be cleared by the NCAA. At the same time, though, former Wisconsin quarterback, I'm gonna puke, Alex Hornibrook transferred to Florida State as a grad transfer. The NCAA eligibility thing was going to be an issue. One ACC rule prevented a player from transferring within the conference. Another ACC rule requires a transferring player to have been in residence at his original school for at least 1 year before he is eligible to transfer. Finally, the NCAA mandates that a player has to sit out a year when they transfer from one FBS school to another. That February, though, the ACC decided to get rid of their transfer rule of needing to be in residence at a school for a year. Louisville worked with Florida State to allow the transfer, so it was just on the NCAA. He was originally denied but appealed the decision, which was later approved. Travis was eligible for the 2019 season. A bit less than 2 weeks after he was ruled eligible, James Blackman was named the starter over Hornibrook, with Travis as the third-teamer. Travis had played well in the spring game in April, going 22 of 28 for 241 yards, but Hornibrook and Blackman were the experienced veterans. Travis understood and embraced the competition. Travis didn't play in the first 9 games of the season, but he scored his first career touchdown against Boston College and scored on a 66-yard scamper to ice the game. He became the first Florida State player to rush for 60 yards and pass for 60 yards in a game in the win over Alabama State. Willie Taggart was fired that season, but the Seminoles still made a bowl game. Jordan played in 8 games, starting 6 of them in 2020, throwing for 1,056 yards and 6 touchdowns, while also rushing for a school record 559 yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground. He broke Florida State's single-season record for quarterback rushing yards, passing the previous mark of 504, set by Heisman Trophy winner Charlie Ward in 1992. In 2021, he started 8 games, throwing for 1,539 yards and 15 touchdowns, while also rushing for 530 yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground, being named the team's offensive MVP. 2022 was by far Jordan's best season in college, with him throwing for 3,214 yards, 24 touchdowns and only 5 interceptions, while also rushing for 417 yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground. Florida State finished the year going 10-3 and beat Oklahoma in the Pop-Tart Bowl. Jordan is going into his 6th year in college with a lot of expectations for himself and Florida State. Greg McElroy spoke highly of Jordan on his podcast, Always College Football, saying, "Jordan Travis, with how he progressed last year, it'd be hard to envision him having a season that would regress whatsoever. I think he's only going to get better. I think his best football is in front of him. His comfort level within the offense, his rapport and chemistry with the wide receivers. There's nothing this young man can't do on the football field." McElroy goes on to talk about why he thinks Jordan can be sitting in New York at the end of the season for the Heisman Trophy ceremony with a couple of signature wins. Florida State has a schedule and team to do something special. They play LSU to start the season and a few weeks later travel to Clemson. Both those games are projected to be top 10 matchups. If they split those games and win out, they could find themselves in the college football playoffs come the end of the year. Jordan Travis is set to have a special season this year, and I can't wait to watch it. Sam Hartman has always been a competitor, and first met his future high school coach Chad Greer when he was 6 years old playing catcher 2 age groups up. Hartman would play Pee Wee football for the Big Blue Express, where he was coached by former North Carolina quarterback Mark May. May saw the potential young Hartman had at quarterback and spent 6 years helping develop Sam into the future quarterback he would become. He could run an air raid offense when other teams were handing the ball off every other play, and was always working even on family vacations, recruiting strangers to run passing drills on the beach. May told the press that he was a natural quarterback and all they had to do was let him throw the ball. He went on to say, "By 10 years old, he was extremely accurate. He threw a nice easy ball to catch, good arm. And by then we were throwing it 20 times a game. No one else his age was doing that." Sam had been attending Southlake Christian Academy since he was in kindergarten, was expected to take over as the starting quarterback his freshman year. Instead, in came a new head coach with his son, who was a freshman as well. Because of this, Sam spent most of his time on the bench. This led to Sam feeling burnt out and frustrated, and he felt like he hated football. He tried to convince his parents to let him quit, but his mother, who has always been his voice of reason, talked him into staying with it. Southlake Christian met Davidson Day, where Chad Greer was the head coach of, in the state championship game that year. Southlake Christian was expected to lose 9 players to graduation and 8 players to transfer, and numbers were dropping so low they did not know whether they could field a varsity team the following season. On top of that, the coach who had benched Sam was bolting to another job. Davidson Day, the winner of 3 of 4 state titles at the time, had a quarterback vacancy. Sam decided to transfer to Davidson Day, and it would turn out to be the best decision for him. He spent that offseason rededicating himself to football with an all-day training regimen that ran up to 7 days a week at one point. Greer, a former Richmond and East Carolina quarterback, picked up where May left off when it came to developing the young quarterback, with the two spending most of the summer working together. Sam entered the summer in a 3-man battle for the starting quarterback position, but the team knew right off the bat whose job it was to lose. Senior wide receiver at the time, Jonathan Jeffries, told Moultrie News he embraced the leadership role from day one. Summer workouts, he was calling all the receivers to come put in extra work together. He took that leadership role and ran with it. It's just his nature. Sam won the job and started his varsity career strong, throwing for 222 yards and 3 touchdowns in his first game, 312 yards and 2 touchdowns the next game, and 382 yards and 3 touchdowns the game after that. Davidson Day outscored its first 5 opponents 239-34 behind Hartman's arm. Sam's older brother Joe had taken 2 years off from football to focus on basketball, and when he returned to the field, he realized his younger brother was the best player in the family. Sam led his team to blowout wins, while also leading them to comeback victories, always knowing the right thing to say to get his team focused when the job needed to be done. He had the it factor of always knowing what he needed to do to win his team the game. Sam led Davidson Day to the state title game, throwing for 2,600 yards and 25 touchdowns. Scouts, recruiters, and reporters flocked to see the 16-year-old long-haired kid. Sam met Dimitri Allison when he was 9 years old. Dimitri was 5 years older than Sam and 3 years older than Joe, but the three instantly latched onto each other. Dimitri's mother was in and out of his life, and the Hartmans drove him to football practice, took him school shopping, and to tutoring. The three boys would do homework together, fish together, and play football in the backyard together. Eventually, the Hartmans gained unofficial custody of him when his grandmother started dealing with kidney failure. Sam told Moultrie News, "You never know what he dealt with at home because he always came around with a big smile. I had to act mature to even hang with him. He didn't let us get away with acting like little brats." Under the Hartmans' custody, Dimitri began to thrive and even earned a football scholarship to play at Elon. He became part of the family. During the fall of his junior year of college, he became very distant, and 2 days before the state title game, he took his own life at 21 years old. Just want to take a moment to let y'all know you are not alone and never alone. I love and appreciate every one of you, and if you ever are struggling, reach out to friends and family because they love and care about you. I have also left the suicide prevention hotline number in the description below. Sam and Joe received the news of Dimitri's death midway through football practice that day. Sam had to carry his brother to his car in tears, and Sam sat alone at the end of the dock for hours after. Greer told him nobody expected him to play Friday, but Sam interrupted him saying he was playing. Sam decided to wear Dimitri's number 10 jersey that day, unbeknownst to his parents. It brought smiles and tears to everyone's eyes. Sam threw 2 touchdowns that night and, according to Greer, played the best game of his life. Sam didn't know how to celebrate the win and was emotionless for the hours that followed. But football was his escape at the time. Since that game, Sam has always worn the number 10 jersey. Hartman committed to Wake Forest during the following summer with the Demon Deacons offensive coordinator Warren Ruggiero saying, "He was one of our first commits and really got our class going. He's got an excellent arm. He's got all the intangibles. He's been extremely productive, athletic, and has everything we're looking for in a quarterback. He has incredible intelligence, electric personality, just an all-around home run for us." Sam put up even bigger numbers his junior year, even having a game with 563 passing yards, which is the 3rd most in county history, just weeks after having neck surgery. This was due to a thyroid condition that saw him lose over 30 pounds in 2 weeks, going from 175 to playing his first game at 141 a few weeks later. He finished as a member of the first-team All-State team, finishing his Davidson Day career with 6,388 yards and 69 touchdowns. He had 7 games with at least 300 passing yards and 3 more of 400 or more passing yards during his junior year. Going to Sam's senior year, Coach Greer accepted a head coaching job at Oceanside Collegiate Academy in Charleston, South Carolina, a program that had gone 0-8 in its first year of play and had seen 2 coaches already come and go. The average score Oceanside lost by was usually 65 to 7. It was a program in the dumps and was going to be a major rebuild for Greer. Sam decided to follow his head coach down to Oceanside, moving from North Carolina to South Carolina just because of his relationship with his coach. It also forced him to win over a new locker room, preparing him for his freshman year at Wake Forest. He knew no one at the school and took a leap of faith to join the man who believed in him just 2 years earlier. Sam starred in Season 2 of QB1 Beyond the Lights, and during the first game of the season, Sam dealt with drop pass after drop pass and snaps rolling back to him, but kept the team together. He showed a cool head and led Oceanside back from a 10-0 deficit to a 34-17 win for Oceanside's first win in school history. He finished his senior year leading Oceanside to a 7-3 record, throwing for 3,093 yards and 29 touchdowns, while also rushing for 9 touchdowns on the ground. Coming out of high school, Sam Hartman was a 3-star recruit, according to 24/7 Sports Composite, with a rating of .8626. He received 3 offers from Wake Forest, Charlotte, and Elon, but that was probably due to his early commitment to Wake Forest. He received recruiting letters from schools all the time, but after his commitment, he just left them unopened. Wake Forest head coach Dave Clawson told the Post and Courier a lot of people were trying to flip him at the end, and he wouldn't even talk to them, didn't consider it. The thing we liked about Sam, he has a lot of qualities that Deacon's senior quarterback John Walford has. Gym rat, consumed with football, loves the game. I think he's a guy that we're going to need to kick out of the film room. We're really excited we got him. Moments after signing his letter of intent, he left the room and returned in a cap and gown for his one-man early graduation so he could enroll early and compete for the starting quarterback job right away. Enrolling early paid off as Sam won the starting quarterback job at a preseason camp and became the first true freshman to start a season opener for Wake Forest in school history. He threw for 378 yards in an overtime win over Tulane to start the season. He led the Demon Deacons to a 4-4 record before suffering a season-ending injury against Syracuse. During the 2019 season, Hartman sat behind Jamie Newman, serving as his backup for most of the season. He entered the game against Louisville when the Demon Deacons were down 55-38 and led 3 straight scoring drives with Wake Forest falling short 62-59. He was named the starter the following week and led Wake Forest to a 22-20 win over Florida State, but would not see playing time again until the tail end of the season. After Jamie Newman decided to transfer to Georgia, Hartman took over the starting quarterback job during the shortened 2020 season, throwing for 2,224 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Things were looking good for Hartman and Wake Forest, and they were about to get even better. During the 2021 season, Sam led Wake Forest to their first ever 8-0 start and put up video game-esque numbers, including 458 yards and 5 touchdowns against Army. The Deacs won the ACC Atlantic, losing to a Kenny Pickett-led Pittsburgh team in the title game. Sam finished the season throwing for a Wake Forest school record 4,228 yards and 39 touchdowns, with only 14 interceptions, and added 11 touchdowns on the ground. Going into the 2022 season, there were high expectations for Sam Hartman and Wake Forest. Then heartbreaking news would break. Sam was ruled out indefinitely with a non-football related medical condition. This led to an outpouring of well wishes across the college football world, showing how impactful of a player and person Sam is. With not a lot of information at the time being released, many thought of the worst situations and just prayed for Sam to come out healthy on the other side. It was later released that Hartman was dealing with Paget-Schroeder syndrome, which is a blood clot stemming from repeated strenuous activity. He had surgery on August 9th to remove the clot and was forced to sit out for a month. Hartman would be medically cleared before the Deacs' Week 2 matchup against Vanderbilt after an ultrasound found no additional clotting. This made Sam appreciate the game more, telling ESPN, "This process has made me appreciate all the people at Wake Forest University and our football program for how they care for us. There will be a time for me to tell my complete story. Right now, I'm really just excited to get back on the field with my teammates." According to On3, he also had a rib removed earlier in the year and planned to turn it into a necklace as well. Sam finished the year throwing for 3,701 yards, 38 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions, leading Wake to an 8-5 record and a win over Missouri in the Gasparilla Bowl. After the season, Hartman decided to enter his name in the transfer portal, finishing with an ACC record for career touchdown passes with 110 and finishing second all-time in ACC passing yards with 12,967 yards. The Athletic's Matt Fortuna writes, "Simply put, Hartman figures to be the most accomplished quarterback on the college market this offseason. He'll be 24 by the time the season kicks off." It was believed Notre Dame and multiple SEC schools were in pursuit of Hartman, who ultimately decided to transfer to Notre Dame. With Hartman on the roster, many feel that Notre Dame may be able to compete for the college football playoffs. The dude is a special talent and can light up the scoreboard. If they could pull off 2 wins against Ohio State, USC, and Clemson, and win out the remainder of their games, there's no reason they shouldn't be in the college football playoff conversation. When it comes to Hartman, his teammates have had nothing but nice things to say about him. Former Wake Forest offensive lineman Sean Magin told The Athletic, "The guy loves everybody on the team. He gets along with everybody like your quarterback should. And just knowing you have someone special slinging that rock behind you just makes the offensive line strain a little bit longer because you know he's got the it factor. And if you could just give him the 1 millisecond longer, like at Syracuse in that overtime game, we knew. We just strain, just protect this twist and let him get rid of the ball, and he does special things like that. So it's really neat. And you just savor it as an offensive lineman, and you just want to protect the guy for as long as possible so he can make those plays." While A.T. Perry told people at the NFL Combine, "Just getting that connection with him, working with him throughout the summer and throughout the season was incredible. Just learning from him. How he takes care of himself on and off the field, it's amazing just to see what he does on the field. It's great. It seems like Sam Hartman already has taken a leadership position in the locker room at Notre Dame, which is no surprise. Sam looks to be the favorite to win the Notre Dame starting quarterback job, and with a special season could be a future NFL draft pick. Sam Hartman's career has been filled with a lot of adversity. He has learned from it, and has become a stronger leader and person because of it. That is why he may be one of my favorite college quarterbacks of all time. Austin Reed was born on February 22, 2000, and grew up in St. Augustine Beach, Florida. Reed's journey to becoming one of the most sought-after transfer portal quarterbacks goes down a path of a player who had to wait until his senior year to take over the starting quarterback job. Austin would not disappoint during his lone year as a starter at St. Augustine High School, throwing for 2,925 yards, 34 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, while also rushing for 3 touchdowns on the ground. He was named the 2017 Class 6A Player of the Year by the Florida Athletic Coaches Association, finished 3rd for the Florida Dairy Farmers Player of the Year Award for all classes, and was named First Team All-District Quarterback by the Florida Athletic Coaches Association. He led the Yellow Jackets to the Class 6A semifinals, where they would lose to Armwood High School to finish the year 12-1. Reed would be invited to play in the annual FACA North-South All-Star Classic, throwing for 240 yards and 1 touchdown, and being named the MVP of the game. Might I add, he was rotating possessions with other quarterbacks. Coming out of high school, Austin Reed was an unranked recruit and decided to commit to Southern Illinois. After redshirting during the 2018 football season, Austin found himself being the 3rd quarterback in a 2-man quarterback competition going into the spring of 2019. So, he decided to transfer out of Southern Illinois. He knew if he wanted to have immediate eligibility, he would either need to transfer to a JUCO college or a Division II school. He didn't like the idea of being far from home again, and had he transferred to a JUCO school, it would have meant being farther from home compared to Southern Illinois or the Division II route. At the time, there was a great opportunity close to home. About 390 miles away from where he grew up, sat a college by the name of the University of West Florida. West Florida had recently started their football program back in 2016. It provided the opportunity to be a 6-hour drive away from home and the possibility of winning the starting job when he arrived. So he decided to take the leap of faith and join the Argonauts football team. Austin would win the starting job his first year, with West Florida throwing for 4,084 yards, 40 touchdowns and 11 interceptions, leading the Argonauts to the Division II national title game. During the title game, Austin broke the record for most passing yards in a championship game by halftime, as well as the touchdown record, finishing the game with 523 passing yards and 6 touchdowns. West Florida became the first team to beat 3 undefeated teams in the same Division II postseason before making Minnesota State the 4th team. They ended Valdosta State's 25-game win streak, and Lenore Ryan's 15-game home winning streak, as well as Ferris State's 14-game home winning streak, en route to their national title. West Florida also became the first NCAA football team to reach the postseason twice in its first 4 years of existence, going 9-1 in the playoffs, with their only loss coming to Texas A&M Commerce in the 2017 title game. West Florida would have to wait 2 years to defend their title due to the cancellation of the 2020 season because of the events of 2020. Reed finished the year throwing for 3,418 yards, 38 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, leading West Florida to a 9-2 record. Reed struggled when it came to making the decision on whether he should enter the transfer portal or not. He loved his teammates at West Florida and knew back in 2019 they were a special group. He described it as going through a breakup. The coaching staff understood what he had done and the kind of opportunities he would be given, but Reed was concerned about how his teammates would take it. For the most part, they were happy for him, which helped ease his mind when it came to making the life-changing decision. West Florida was where he spent the past few years, it was where he called home. But in the end, he knew he at least needed to try to make the leap to the Division I level, telling The Athletic, "It just got to the point where he had accomplished a lot here at West Florida. I was very happy with everything we had done here, and very happy here. But I had aspirations to play at a certain level, and that's the highest level. I want to compete against the best of the best." He didn't want to look back 20 years from now and think, what if? So he took the leap of faith. The minute Reed entered the transfer portal, over 25 recruiting staff members across the FBS and FCS levels started following him. Rivals were tipped off by him entering the portal, so they fired off a tweet announcing his decision before he could even make a post himself. He figured he should say something, so he crafted a statement that took over 30 minutes to make. The floodgates would then open. He had multiple FBS offers within the first 24 to 36 hours and spoke with Ole Miss, Northwestern, and Arizona State. Reed estimated he'd heard from about 35 schools throughout the FBS and FCS, which blew his mind. During his original recruitment back in high school, he begged programs to be interested in him by DMing them, and the schools would blow him off. Reed told The Athletic they'd say, "Yeah man, we think you're good." Then I wouldn't get any more responses. Obviously the staff change, it's not the same guys, but these are the schools I would have begged to get interest in me, and now they're talking to me. He knows many of the programs contacting him now have major resource advantages over the ones he'd played in previously, but at 22, he's less likely to get caught up in things like the bells and whistles. He wants to know where he'll get a legitimate chance to play in an offense that fits him. He wasn't in a rush, but did not want to drag out the process. He spent the first few days of the portal taking everything in. He will now have 2 years of eligibility, and by the time he finishes school, he will have 6 years of college education paid for, which he is extremely blessed about. He graduated last May with a degree in communications and has been working on his MBA this past year. As of now, he finished his West Florida career with 7,507 passing yards, 78 touchdowns, and 10 rushing touchdowns. I don't know where Austin Reed will transfer, but I'm excited to see him play at the next level. Whether he finds success at the Division I level or not, his career so far is an impressive one. As I was finishing up the video, news broke that Reed is committed to play at Western Kentucky. Kedon Slovis grew up in Scottsdale, Arizona, a state that in recent years has become a hotbed for Division I quarterbacks. Slovis recalled back to high school telling The Athletic, "I remember hearing all these other names that were getting recruited in my class when they were freshmen or sophomores. A kid like Spencer Rattler, who was in my area, was a 5-star and he started as a freshman." Slovis would not have the same type of starting success as Rattler, but that did not stop him from believing he was a high-level quarterback. Slovis would attend Desert Mountain High School, where he would be mentored and coached by former NFL quarterback Kurt Warner, who served as his quarterback coach. Desert Mountain was not the most successful high school program while Slovis was there, according to The Athletic, and Slovis would not take over the starting quarterback job until his junior year. During his junior year, though, in 2017, Slovis threw for 2,987 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Slovis would be named an All-State honorable mention. As a senior, Slovis threw for 2,543 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. Slovis was named to the Prep Star All-Western Region Team and All-State Honorable Mention again, while also being named All-Academic Honorable Mention by Sports 360 AZ. According to 24/7 Sports Composite, Kedon Slovis was a 3-star recruit who was the 26th best pro-style quarterback and 705th best player in his class. He only received 8 Division I offers from the likes of Hawaii, NC State, Oregon State, SMU, and USC. Now, Slovis' recruiting story is a very interesting one. Nick Rolovich was the head coach at Hawaii from 2016 to 2019. He usually liked to try to see players in person before he offered them, but due to where he was located, that was not always possible. He decided to watch Slovis' tape and loved it so much he decided to offer the Arizona native. Rolovich told The Athletic, "Kedon was one that the film, the motion, the quick release, everything, I love the long athlete. There were so many things that checked the boxes off the film. And he played for a Hall of Fame quarterback, Kurt Warner, in high school. And you assume he has a preparation level to be able to contribute early. And Kurt reiterated that to us." Rolovich decided to offer Slovis in March of 2018, becoming his first scholarship offer. For a quarterback with FBS potential, this was extremely late into the recruiting process. But like I mentioned before, Slovis' high school was not the strongest program. Rolovich called Slovis and told him, "Hey, we really like you and want to watch you throw, but we think you're one of the best quarterbacks on the West Coast. We want to offer you early." Slovis spoke on the situation saying, "That kind of came out of nowhere because I just started talking to them that week and they offered me." After his junior year, Slovis had sent his film out to multiple schools and recruiting coordinators through direct messages. New Mexico State offered Slovis shortly after Hawaii, and SMU offered in May. Slovis secured his first Power 5 offer when NC State offered him. Slovis had developed a relationship with Eli Drinkowitz, who was the offensive coordinator for the Wolfpack at the time. Slovis told The Athletic, "Of all the people who recruited me, I really enjoyed talking to him. He's a pretty funny guy, actually. He would call quite often and send me stuff and film they were doing. It was pretty cool to have the interactions because I hadn't really been recruited before, and even when I had, it was very minimal from coaches. The thing I really appreciated about him when he recruited me, I don't like being courted in a way. I don't like when the coaches tell you how good you are, any of that. I kind of like talking to a coach and seeing what they like to do offensively." It surprised Slovis when the Wolfpack started recruiting him after the way Arizona and Arizona State treated him. Arizona never showed any interest, but Arizona State, which was 20 minutes away from where he grew up, did not show him much attention until they lost a recruit to BYU. Ironically, right? Slovis had a chip on his shoulder, and instead Arizona State landed Jaden Daniels. In May of 2018, then USC quarterback coach Brian Ellis came to visit Slovis. He asked Slovis how he would feel if USC offered him to come play for them. Would he consider committing? Slovis told him he'd seriously consider them due to the fact that they would be the best opportunity. Slovis told The Athletic, "So I guess he called my dad next and told him he was going to offer me. Again, nobody told me, and at lunchtime he told me to give him a call, and that's when he offered me. So at lunchtime on the same day, at school, he offered me from throwing with me that morning. It was pretty crazy." Slovis was offered on Monday and took a visit to USC and was committed by that Friday, announcing it that Saturday. Slovis spoke on the commitment saying, "I was probably the least touted USC quarterback commit in recent history." That is not where the story ends. Things got interesting for Slovis. JT Daniels took over the starting quarterback spot in 2018, with five-star prospect from the 2020 class Bryce Young committed to USC. Those two seem to be the future for the Trojans. On top of that, then offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury tried to recruit Dylan Gabriel, who was ranked one spot behind Slovis in the 24/7 Sports Composite rankings for pro-style quarterbacks. Still, Slovis remained committed to the Trojans, believing in himself and also feeling like he really did not have any other options. No one really expected Slovis to get any playing time his freshman year, especially since the Trojans already had sophomore quarterback JT Daniels on the roster. Then JT Daniels tore his ACL during the season opener. Slovis was thrown into the starting role. His first start, Slovis threw for 377 yards and 3 touchdowns, completing 84.8% of his passes against Stanford, all of which were freshman records in a debut. Slovis would suffer a concussion against Utah and missed the Washington game before returning against Notre Dame. Against Colorado, Slovis threw for 406 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. In a 3-game span against Arizona State, California, and UCLA, Slovis threw for 432 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception, 406 yards and 4 touchdowns, and 515 yards and 4 touchdowns. During that 3-game time span, he completed an average of 78.6% of his passes. Slovis finished his true freshman year throwing for 3,502 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. After the season, Jack Sears and JT Daniels, who were both 4- and 5-star prospects respectively, decided to both enter the transfer portal, basically telling the world Slovis was the Trojans' guy. During the USC's bowl game, Slovis would suffer a strained elbow, which caused him to spend the first few weeks of 2020 resting his arm. He was not 100% until March, and he planned to work with quarterback coaches to fix up the fundamental things, but then the pandemic threw everything out the window. USC did not return to practice until October, and Slovis struggled to throw a spiral early in the season. He was able to hide it in the opener against Arizona State, especially after making a throw to Drake London that won the game, but things became obvious against Arizona. Everybody had their own theories at the time. Slovis talked to The Athletic about a time he hurt his elbow in 8th grade and missed the first game of the season. When he came back, he wasn't throwing right, and his coaches told him, "Keaton, you're healthy now. You gotta let it rip." Slovis hadn't realized he wasn't letting it rip. He relates the arm injury to that and arm fatigue. He told The Athletic, "It was more so I got hurt. I tried to change a few things I was doing to be more efficient, but I was teaching myself and creating a lot of bad habits doing that. Did my arm feel better last year? Yeah, it did. But did that mean I threw the ball better? No, it didn't. Did it help with my confidence? No. Was I less accurate? 100%. Although Slovis wasn't his best in 2020, he still stepped up when his team needed him with numerous comebacks. USC would go on to lose in the Pac-12 championship to Oregon, and Slovis finished the season throwing for 1,921 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions in 6 games. During USC's Pro Day, Slovis was throwing for some USC wide receivers, and he seemed to be throwing better again. Though he felt like he saw improvement after fully recovering, Slovis still struggled in 2021, throwing for 2,153 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions, leading USC to a 4-5 record as a starter. Jackson Dart would see significant playing time towards the end of the season, and head coach Clay Helton was fired. With the arrival of Lincoln Riley and the way the transfer portal is nowadays, it also meant the arrival of future first-round pick Caleb Williams from Oklahoma. Slovis saw the writing on the wall and would enter the transfer portal himself. It was a tough and emotional decision for Slovis, who released a statement saying, "I won't lie, I thought we would continue that success throughout my career. But football is kind of like life. You can't control everything. Whether it's injuries or having to navigate a season with COVID and so many unknowns, some things you just don't plan for." And everything didn't go as I planned during the rest of my time at USC. USC will always be a special place to me. Now it's time for me to start a new chapter. With Pittsburgh coming off an amazing season that saw them win the ACC championship, led by quarterback Kenny Pickett, Slovis jumped up to the opportunity to become a Panther. He told the Player Tribune, "I was so excited when Coach Narduzzi called, because I knew that Pitt and this program were the right fit for me to keep developing into the best leader I can be. I'm ready to win now. I'm feeling incredibly grateful for the opportunity to be a Panther. I can't wait to prove myself again on this stage." Things seemed almost poetic when Pitt opened up the season against West Virginia in the backyard brawl, who was now led by quarterback JT Daniels. Slovis and Pitt would beat West Virginia 38-31 to start the season off the right way. But other than a 305-yard passing game against Georgia Tech, a game Pitt would lose, Slovis would struggle throughout the season and would not throw for more than 250 yards until the Miami game and the regular season finale. He finished the 2022 season throwing for 2,397 yards, 10 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, and before the Sun Bowl, announced that he would be transferring from Pitt for his final year of eligibility. Things had changed at Pitt between the time period he transferred and when he started his first game against West Virginia. Offensive coordinator Mark Whipple left for Nebraska and was ultimately replaced by Frank Cignetti Jr., whose offense averaged 10 fewer pass attempts per game than the 40 tosses every contest under Whipple, and Blitnikoff award-winning wide receiver Jordan Addison had bolted to USC. Slovis was almost set up to fail a bit, some may say. He also battled injuries throughout the season, going back to the Panthers' Week 2 matchup against Tennessee. Some felt he may return home to one of the Arizona schools, or go to TCU or Kentucky, where replacing NFL draft quarterbacks. Instead, Slovis chose to attend BYU, a school that had recently seen Jaron Hall and Zach Wilson drafted. BYU was intrigued by Slovis' accuracy in the past and his experience having played in the Pac-12 and ACC as they adjusted to the Big 12 play. BYU offensive coordinator Aaron Roderick told KSL.com, "Keaton is an effortless passer, great leader, and one of the most accurate quarterbacks in college football. I've enjoyed watching his calm demeanor. He's always poised, never too high or too low. I have been so impressed with his methodical approach at this decision to come to BYU. I can't wait for him to join us in January." Reese's Senior Bowl director Jim Nagy believes that Slovis is one of the most naturally accurate quarterbacks in the 2024 class, as he loves his ball placement and mid-range throws that are so critical in the pro game. Slovis has impressed so far and has won the starting quarterback job heading into the 2023 college football season. He loves BYU so far, telling Fox Sports, "There's a certain energy here. Like, I don't know if it's happy-go-lucky or just constant optimism. Guys take so much pride in the why and have so much confidence in themselves and their teammates around them. It's almost like a brotherhood that's a tight-knit circle. And within that circle, that's a belief that I haven't really been around." When he trots out on the field against Sam Houston State on September 2nd, it's also believed that Slovis will become just the second ever quarterback to start for BYU after previously making a start under center at another FBS school. Though his numbers may have regressed over the past few seasons, Slovis was viewed as an NFL caliber quarterback after last season, but wanted to end his college career on a high note. Slovis will look to have a special season at BYU, and if he does, he could find himself hearing his name called come next spring at the 2024 NFL Draft. Carter Bradley was born on March 9, 2000 in Fargo, North Dakota, where he would spend the first part of his childhood. Bradley's father, Gus, is the current defensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts. When Carter was born, he was serving as an assistant for his alma mater, North Dakota State. Carter grew up near North Dakota State's campus, and he can't remember a time where football wasn't a central part of his life. When Carter's dad took a job with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Carter and his family would relocate to Tampa, where he would begin playing football in kindergarten for the new Tampa Patriots. While playing quarterback was always his focus, Carter also played baseball and basketball growing up. In 2009, the family would move to Seattle when his father took a job as the defensive coordinator of the Seattle Seahawks, would move back to Florida in 2013 when his dad was named the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. With Carter getting ready to start attending high school, the family decided they would begin to put down roots there. Carter would attend a private Christian school called Providence School, where he would letter his freshman year and take over the starting role as a sophomore, where he accounted for 15 touchdowns while Providence would go 3-7. Entering the 2016 season, Carter would make a name for himself as he would start getting the attention of different Division I schools. Louisville would be the first Division I offer that Carter would receive that May, and he would also receive interest from Duke, Vanderbilt, and Virginia. He would not let his recruitment become a distraction as he was focused on spring ball at the time. His dad was also trying to stay out of his way, with Carter telling 24/7 Sports, "My dad kinda stays out of it. He lets me do my own thing. But if I go to him, and if I ask, 'What do you think about this?' he will give me feedback. He knows what's best for me, but I'm taking my steps into learning from my mistakes. I'm feeling it out because I'm getting into this new recruiting process. He wants to be with me, but he also wants me to go through this and learn and mature over time. I think honestly being a coach's son really helps me put out learning the game. What these coaches are looking for is one thing, but being a player and knowing what they want is good. From a coach's son's perspective, it's a great honor, but it's a point where I want to do my own thing. I want to be Carter Bradley and not Gus Bradley's son." There was not much information on Bradley's junior or senior years when it came to his stats. I mean, not even Toledo nor South Alabama have it listed on his profile, and Max Preps only has half of his junior season. Providence would go 3-6 in 2016 and 3-6 in 2017. According to The Athletic's Dan Brugler, the Beast, which makes the Athletic subscription worth it in my own opinion, Bradley's best season would come his junior year, while during his senior year he would suffer a torn ACL. He would also letter in track. According to 24/7 Sports Composite, Carter Bradley was a 3-star recruit who was the 25th best pro-style quarterback and 611th best player in the 2018 recruiting class. Some sites like ESPN even had him rated as a 4-star recruit. Carter would slowly accumulate offers by going to camps throughout his high school career, finishing with over 21 offers from the likes of Ole Miss, Pitt, Purdue, Toledo, and Wisconsin. He also received interest from Florida and Georgia throughout the process. He was also chosen to compete in the Elite 11 finals, which put him on a larger recruiting stage. However, most of his options evaporated after his torn ACL midway through his senior season. The injury, though, did not deter Toledo head coach Jason Candle, who made Bradley a priority. Bradley received a late offer from Ole Miss, but believed in the bond he'd forged with the Rockets coaching staff. He even had a crystal ball prediction for 24/7 Sports to go to Pitt, but Toledo would land the Florida quarterback prospect. This shocked many, with FanBuzz releasing an article titled, "4-star quarterback Carter Bradley makes shocking commitment to MAC team." But Toledo felt like home, and they did not abandon Carter after his injury like other schools did. When Carter arrived at Toledo, they were coming off a season where they had gone 11-2 and won the MAC championship. The 2018 season would be a year where Toledo would go 7-6. As the season came to a close, some wondered whether Carter should be given the reins, as he was viewed as the future of the program. The Toledo Blades, David Briggs, would write back in November of 2018, "Bradley was not just a top-rated recruit in the MAC. With a big, accurate arm and a bright mind, he was one of the better quarterback prospects in the country, rated as a 4-star prospect by ESPN, one of the top 25 pro-style passers by Rivals.com and 247sports.com. This is not to cast aside our other quarterbacks, both of whom have grown into good players. It is about outsizing the potential of Bradley." Carter would appear in the VMI, Kent State, and Central Michigan games, finishing the year throwing for 54 yards. Heading into spring practice in 2019, Carter would suffer a torn labrum, missing most of the spring practice, but kept his head up. He told Brian Buckey of the Toledo Blade, "Taking a step back was always the hardest thing for me to do, but I think it was the best thing. It humbled me like no other. I honestly feel like it was one of the best things that happened to me. Honestly, I don't even really think it was a setback. I think it was a good chance for me to kind of look at the spring and kind of visualize a lot of things and get my mind prepared for coming into the summer. From a leadership aspect, it was a great opportunity for me. A lot of people are going to look at me and how I respond." He impressed Coach Campbell as he stayed locked in even though he was kept on the sideline and returned for fall practice, 100% and focused. Bradley entered the fall competing with a few upperclassmen as well as true freshman DeQuan Finn. Carter would have his first start in Toledo's season finale against Central Michigan when he threw for 121 yards. Throughout the season, he had come in for injured Eli Peters, including during the final drive in a win over Kent State 35-33. He finished the season throwing for 502 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions, while also rushing for a touchdown. Throughout the shortened 2020 season, Carter would come in for an injured Peters and made his first start of the season against NIU on December 5th, when he threw for 432 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions in a 41-24 win. He followed that up with 265 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions against Central Michigan, throwing the game-winning touchdown with 1:33 left. Toledo would finish the year 4-2. Heading into the 2021 season, Carter was named Toledo's starting quarterback. It would start the first half of the season, but would struggle and be replaced halfway through the season by Daquan Finn after a 3-3 start, and his playing time would disappear after that. Toledo would finish the year going 7-5, and Bradley threw for 972 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Following the regular season, Carter would decide to enter the transfer portal. Carter Bradley would transfer to South Alabama, where he would quickly get his career back on track. He would throw for 3,335 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions, while also rushing for 2 touchdowns on the ground, leading South Alabama to their first winning season and to a 10-3 record, the division title in 2022. In 2022, Bradley set the school records for passing yards, completions, and touchdowns in a season. This past season, South Alabama would go 7-6, behind Carter's 2,660 passing yards, 19 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. Bradley finished his 2 years at South Alabama with the most passing yards with 5,995, the most passing touchdowns with 47, and the most completions with 496 in school history. The transfer to South Alabama saved his career, and now he could be a late-round pick. Bradley impressed at the Senior Bowl and could be a late-round pick or special free agent pickup. Bradley may go undrafted, but his journey seems far from over. John Rice Plumlee was born on January 2, 2001, and grew up in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. At a young age, John was a talented pianist and singer, but sports are what would become his true love. He would be a 2-sports star throughout his childhood, impressing both on the football field and the baseball diamond. Plumlee would begin playing quarterback in youth football and impressed throughout his middle school career. When he got to high school, attending Oaks Grove High School, he would actually play outside linebacker and a safety hybrid while serving as Oak Grove's backup quarterback throughout the year. He would get his first opportunity to play quarterback in a live high school football game his sophomore year when his coach decided to go for 2. Plumlee was a special athlete who could run and throw, so his coach designed a play where he would roll to his right and choose to throw or pass the ball depending on what the defense would give him. Right before he would snap the ball, the defense would shift, so Plumlee would choose to run left, instead thinking he could outrun the defender. While John rolled left, the defender had a great angle on him, so Plumlee would stop and throw the ball to the running back, who was supposed to be his lead blocker. The running back would catch the ball, capping off an impressively hectic play. As a junior, Plumlee started every game for Oak Grove, except for 2 when he injured his non-throwing hand. He impressed fans and his coaches throughout the year, extending plays with his legs. He would even have a 95-yard touchdown run against Petal. He would finish the season throwing for 1,579 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions, while leading the Warriors to a 6-5 record. He would even jump to the defensive side of the ball from time to time, like when his team needed him to cover Jonathan Mingo, who was the state's top player at Brandon High School. As a senior, he would throw for 2,834 yards, with 33 touchdown passes and 3 interceptions, while also rushing for 1,444 yards on the ground and 19 touchdowns. He led Oak Grove to the state title game, where they would lose to Horn Lake 31-27, finishing the year with a 12-3 record. Plumlee finished his high school career with 5,430 passing yards, 2,314 rushing yards, and 82 total touchdowns in 3 seasons. On top of being an impressive football player, Plumlee was also a great baseball player. Throughout the summer in high school, he would spend time at tournaments for baseball and make it back in time for football practice, never showing up late. And his family traveled so much for both sports that they made a makeshift bed in the back of their Nissan to get sleep when they could. Plumlee batted .411 with 39 hits, 45 runs scored, 7 doubles, 5 triples, and 2 home runs, and 24 RBIs in 29 games, and was named 2019 5A 6A All-State in his final baseball season at Oak Grove. Coming out of high school according to 24/7 Sports Composite, John Rice Plumlee was a 4-star recruit who was the 14th best dual-threat quarterback and 378th best player in the 2019 recruiting class. He received over 15 different Division I offers from the likes of Alabama, Florida State, Georgia, Mississippi State, and Ole Miss. He hoped to play both football and baseball in college and would originally commit to Georgia. He was expected to be the 3rd-string quarterback heading into his freshman year, sitting behind Jake Fromm and Justin Fields. His high school coach told the Clarion Ledger he's not scared of competition. He has confidence in himself to go in there and walk into that room. He's going to have the confidence in himself when it comes to getting in the ball games. Plumlee spoke on the decision, saying, "When the opportunity was presented to me, they said I could play baseball. If it doesn't work out down the line, I'm not doing well then, I'll probably need to focus on one thing. As of right now, while I could do both, I really want to. Then, right before National Signing Day, Georgia would flip Dwayne Mathis from Ohio State to become a Bulldog, and they added former walk-on Stetson Bennett back, with this time him being on scholarship after he spent time at a JUCO. Plumlee remained pledged to Georgia, but would not sign during the early signing period. According to an ESPN report, Georgia had asked Plumlee to take a blue shirt. Plumlee was intrigued by Ole Miss hiring Rich Rodriguez to replace Phil Longo, with him explaining to 24/7 Sports, "Rich Rod's offense was a big aspect in it. Earlier, Ole Miss didn't really want me as a quarterback when Phil Longo was the offensive coordinator. They liked me as a slot wide receiver at defensive back. When Coach Rich Rod came in, he wanted me to play quarterback specifically. That's the only thing he wanted me for. That was a major thing for me, because the position I wanted to play in college was quarterback. Knowing I had the opportunity to do that was one of the major things that led me here for sure." A few days before National Signing Day, Plumlee would flip his commitment to Ole Miss and would later sign for them. During his freshman year at Ole Miss, John Rice Plumlee served as the backup to Matt Corral when entered the game against Cal when Corral got hurt. Plumlee would complete all 7 of his passes for 82 yards and rush for 53 yards on the ground, almost leading the Rebels to a comeback win, but they would be stopped on the 1-yard line as time expired. He made his first career start the following week, throwing for 141 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception, while also rushing for 109 yards and 1 touchdown on the ground in their 59-31 loss to Alabama, when he completed 35.7% of his passes. He would break the Ole Miss freshman rushing record when he accounted for 177 rushing yards and a pair of touchdowns, while also throwing for 124 yards later in the season. He finished his freshman year throwing for 910 yards, 4 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, while also rushing for 1,023 yards and 12 touchdowns on the ground, going 2-6 as the Rebels starting quarterback. Matt Luke would be fired after a disappointing season and was replaced by Lane Kiffin. There were questions on whether Kiffin would allow Plumlee and running back Jerron Ely to play baseball, but after talking to the baseball coach, he allowed the two to do it. He would play center field his freshman year and went 1 for 16, but the season would be cut short due to the events of 2020. Corral returned for the starting lineup during the 2020 season, and Plumlee would be used in a package plays throughout the year. He would even play wide receiver, getting significant playing time in their bowl win over Indiana, when he finished with 5 catches for 73 yards, including a 44-yard touchdown that put the Rebels up in the fourth quarter. Plumlee finished the season with 65 passing yards with 1 touchdown pass, 94 rushing yards, and 6 receptions for 79 yards in 6 games. Plumlee moved to the wideout position for the bowl game because they were missing multiple players due to transfer portals and opt-outs. In baseball, he batted .267 with 4 doubles, 1 home run, 7 stolen bases, 21 runs scored, and 7 RBIs. He would convert to wide receiver during his junior year, finishing with 19 receptions for 201 yards and 72 rushing yards. He would decide to enter the transfer portal following the season. He would transfer to UCF, where they would allow him to play quarterback once again, with him winning the job. He had big shoes to fill, taking over for Dylan Gabriel, who had transferred to Oklahoma. He tried to get a waiver to play the 2022 baseball season, but it was denied. Under the current rules, he would have needed to complete his one-time transfer before July 1st, 2021, in order to have played baseball in 2022. Plumlee felt blessed when he was named the starting quarterback and finished the year throwing for 2,586 yards, 14 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, while also rushing for 862 yards and 11 touchdowns on the ground. Plumlee entered the 2023 UCF baseball season as a starting outfielder and went viral on April 14th for participating in a baseball game as well as a football game on the same day. He was caught leaving to change into a different uniform mid-game to play in a spring football game. The 12-3 baseball victory over Memphis, he went 2 for 3 with a triple and 2 RBIs. In the spring game, he threw for 230 yards and 2 touchdowns. Finished the baseball season batting .286 with 11 doubles, 1 triple, and 10 home runs, 43 runs scored, 32 RBIs, and led the team in stolen bases with 18. During his senior year at UCF, he would throw for 2,271 yards, 15 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, while also rushing for 505 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground in 10 games. He missed 3 games due to a knee injury and played the remainder of the season at less than 100%. He finished his UCF career setting the rushing record by a quarterback and could be a fun gadget player to watch in the NFL down the road. He's expected to be a late-round pick or priority free agent. Michael Hires was born on May 28, 1999, and grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. Throughout his childhood, he competed in football, basketball, and baseball. He would begin playing basketball and baseball at the age of 5, and would not begin playing football until he was in the 3rd grade, but loved all 3 to the same extent, depending on which season they were in. Hires told Shelby County reporter, "All sports teach you to overcome adversity. There are challenges in every sport that you have to overcome, so I wouldn't say one has had a bigger impact than the other. In football, I may get popped and have to get back up, but in basketball, I may be exhausted and Coach Curley will say, 'You're not tired.' Each one kind of builds off the other and teaches you lessons not just on the field, but off it that gives you a better understanding of how to handle situations the next time you face it." While Hires loved winning, he hated losing much more and was always super competitive. Originally started playing cornerback before moving to quarterback in 5th grade. When Michael was in 7th grade, he began to impress youth coaches with his ability to throw the football, and everyone knew he was going to be a special player. Although many knew how talented Magic Mike was, his nickname in high school, due to being an all-county and all-city basketball player, an all-state and all-county and all-city baseball player, and an all-state and all-county football player at Briarwood Christian, Michael would not become the starting quarterback for Briarwood until his senior year, after a knee injury kept him from playing his junior season, where he would help lead them to a magical season. With Mike out for his junior season, Briarwood Christian would make it to the state semifinals. Their goal heading into his senior year as a team was to make the state championship. As a senior, Hires led Briarwood Christian to a 14-1 record, with their lone loss coming in the Class 5A state championship game after throwing for 2,672 yards and 22 touchdowns. But that state championship loss crushed him. They would lose that game during the final 2 minutes, falling 14-13. A dream season that came to a heartbreaking end included an amazing comeback win in the semifinals to beat St. Clair County 37-33 behind Michael's 393 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown. Briarwood basketball coach Bob Curley told the Shelby County reporter, "I know Mike was hurting. That's going to happen, but the sense of pride that Mike felt in what the team had accomplished was unbelievable. He's a guy that wants to compete all the time. I think he would tell you that the sad part is that it's over, that we didn't get to go to practice and he didn't get to compete with his friends on the football field again." Just a week later, Michael was on the basketball court putting up 21 points and recording 11 rebounds in a 61-43 win over Montevallo. He finished his senior basketball season helping the Lions make it to the playoffs for the first time in 12 years, behind his 19.1 points per game. Although he had a successful senior season, Michael's football career looked possibly to be over, as he was an unranked recruit with no football offers. That was until Murray State came calling 5 days before National Signing Day. Sanford had offered him a preferred walk-on spot at the time, so Michael called Coach Hatch, begging him to offer him a scholarship so he could stay close to home, but they were unable to due to having too many quarterbacks on the roster. So Michael went on to sign with Murray State. During his freshman year, Michael would redshirt for the 2018 season, but would see playing time in 2 games during the 2019 season. Initially, Hires planned to be a 2-sport athlete at Murray State, with them also offering him to play baseball, but he just was not getting a ton of playing time, so he decided to transfer to Northwest Mississippi Community College, choosing to go the JUCO route. Going the JUCO route would turn out to be the best decision he would ever make. Through the events of 2020, Northwest Mississippi Community College would only play 6 games, with Hires starting all 6 of them. He would not disappoint, completing 67% of his pass attempts while throwing for 1,426 yards and 13 touchdowns. Northwest Mississippi College would go undefeated that season and finish the year winning the national title. Following his amazing season, Hires would take a visit to Penn State, who was looking for a potential transfer quarterback, but he would ultimately return to Northwest Mississippi. During his second season there, Hires posted a league-leading 3,093 passing yards and 21 touchdowns, while being named the co-MACCC Offensive Player of the Year, a first-team All-MACCC selection, and first-team All-State selection. He was rated the #1 pro-style junior college quarterback in the nation by rivals, and his recruitment really began to pick up. Hires explained, "After my last year there, recruiting got pretty hot. I started talking to a bunch of teams, but I always had it in the back of my mind, I really wanted to go to Sanford. It was my hometown. I had a bunch of friends on the team, and obviously, what Coach Hatch does with the offense is unbelievable. So when they offered me after my last game, I shut off all recruiting, and I immediately committed to Sanford. I committed on the spot. Returning home was a dream come true for him. When Michael arrived at Sanford, he was quickly able to get comfortable telling the media I already knew so many people here, like JR Trans Reno was one of my best friends in high school. And over 2020 when you couldn't really practice, I threw with Chandler Smith, and I got to know Pete Renkowski and Michael Weiss before. So I knew all these guys, but as soon as I got here, they all welcomed me. It was cool. When you're going to a little bit of an unfamiliar place, you could kind of get uncomfortable, but I never felt like that here. When he arrived at Samford, he competed with former Kentucky and former QB1 Beyond the Light star, Nick Scalzo, for the starting quarterback job. The two pushed each other to be better every day, and Michael credits Nick for helping him become a player he is today. Scalzo would unfortunately suffer a season-ending injury, leading to Michael taking over the starting quarterback job. Hires would impress all season long, leading Samford to a 10-1 regular season record, with their lone loss coming to eventual national champions, Georgia, in their first outright Southern Conference championship, and first outright championship in any conference since 1936. Samford secured the outright SoCon title with a 50-44 double overtime win over Mercer. On the final play of the first overtime, Hires was injured and was unable to play in the second overtime period. Backup Quincy Crittenden came in and scored a dramatic walk-off touchdown to give the Bulldogs the win. Samford entered the FCS playoffs as the number 6 seed, beating Southeastern Louisiana 48-42 in overtime in the second round. They would unfortunately lose to North Dakota State in the quarterfinals, finishing 11-2, making it the school's best season since 1991. Hires was also named the SoCon Offensive Player of the Year and finished as a Walter Payton Award finalist after throwing for 3,534 yards, 36 touchdowns, and only 4 interceptions, completing 76.6% of his passes. Samford would take a step back in 2023, going 6-5, but Hires would still be impressive, throwing for 3,056 yards and 18 touchdowns, while completing 72% of his passes. He was also named second team All-SoCon. Hires grew up going to Samford as a kid and got to live out his childhood dream, leading the school to success they had not seen in decades. Now he turns his focus to the NFL draft, where he hopes he will hear his name called. He believes he's a lot like Gardner Minshew, who also happened to play at Northwest Mississippi back in the day, and is a competitive player who is also a great leader. Hires is projected to be an undrafted free agent, but has taken visits with multiple NFL teams throughout the process. He's a player I wish I could have covered sooner, and someone I hope gets a real shot in the NFL, at the very least a shot in the UFL. Talia Tungavailoa grew up in Ua Beach, Hawaii, and started his football career playing center for his older brother Tua. He would go on to become a quarterback when he entered 6th grade. In 7th grade, his father started training him and pushing him. When Talia entered high school, his brother Tua was having a lot of success at St. Louis School, where former Heisman Trophy winner Marcus Mariota had played at. Tua went on to set the Hawaii record for most passing yards in a career with 8,158 passing yards. Talia played high school football at Kapolei High School for 2 seasons. In those 2 years, Tungavailoa played in 23 games where he was 16-7 as a starter. In those 23 games, Talia put up eye-popping numbers, throwing for 6,703 yards and 64 touchdowns. Many people started to compare Talia to his older brother who was committed to Alabama. Talia told Max Prep that he does not compare himself to Tua. When Talia was a junior in high school, his family moved to Alabaster, Alabama to be near Tua, who is now at the University of Alabama. In Alabaster, Talia attended Thompson High School, where he led them to a 12-1 record and a spot in the state semifinal games in his first season. Talia threw for 3,820 passing yards, 36 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions, while also rushing for another 5 touchdowns. Talia was named to the 2017 All-State team. Between his junior and senior year, Talia competed at the Open and was named to the Elite 11, the same camp his brother was named MVP at 2 years prior. During his senior year at Thompson, Talia became the first quarterback in Alabama history to have at least 4 400-yard performances in a career. He became the 10th player in state history to throw for more than 500 yards in a game when he threw for 507 yards and 4 touchdowns in a win over Oak Mountain. The following game, he threw for 350 yards against Tuscaloosa County in a 35-0 win with Tua watching from the sidelines. Talia led Thompson to an 11-2 record and a berth in the Class 7A state championship. He threw for 3,728 yards, 35 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions during his senior season. In his career at Thompson, he threw for 7,548 passing yards, 71 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions. Combined with the stats from his first 2 seasons in Hawaii, Talia threw for 14,251 passing yards and 135 touchdowns. Talia played in the 2018 Polynesian Bowl in Hawaii, where they named him the High School Player of the Year. He also earned a spot in the 2019 All-American Bowl and selected to play in the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star Classic. Coming out of high school, according to 24/7 Sports, Taulia Tagovailoa was rated a 4-star recruit. He was a 5th-rated pro-style quarterback, 8th best player in Alabama, and 180th best player nationally. Tagovailoa had 14 different Division I offers, but it always seemed like he was going to follow in his brother's footsteps and attend Alabama. Taulia committed to Alabama on April 21st, 2018, before his senior season. No one expected Taulia to start his freshman year due to his brother already being the starting quarterback. He played in 5 games his freshman year. He debuted in a blowout win over Duke, but did not record any stats. He went 1 for 1 for 20 yards against Southern Miss, completing his first career pass. He had his best game against Arkansas, completing 6 of his 8 passes for 45 yards. Late in the fourth quarter of the Mississippi State game, the same game where his brother suffered a season-ending injury, he came in to hand the ball off and run out the clock. Mac Jones took over for the injured Tua, and Taulia was Jones' backup. Taulia completed 2 of his 3 passes for 35 yards and his first career touchdown against Western Carolina. He finished the season completing 9 of his 12 passes for 100 yards, a touchdown, and -2 rushing yards. Tua decided to forego his senior season and enter the NFL draft, where he was drafted by the Miami Dolphins 5th overall. With the departure of his brother, Taulia was ready to fight for the starting quarterback job against Mac Jones and incoming 5-star recruit Bryce Young. Galu Tagovailoa, Taulia's father, told AL.com, "It's really tough and it's nothing against Alabama. But my boys are competitive, and Leah is such a competitive kid. And he wanted an opportunity to compete, and he didn't really get that opportunity. So he decided to use spring ball to do that." Unfortunately, spring ball was cut short due to COVID-19, and all signs were pointing to Mac Jones being the starter for Alabama to at least start the season. Taulia seemed to see the writing on the wall, and seemingly out of nowhere entered his name in the transfer portal. Right after Taulia put his name in the transfer portal, there were odds released by where he might go. These were the schools listed from least likely to most likely. Some thought he may transfer to Auburn to stay in the state of Alabama, while others thought he might go back to Hawaii, returning home. Oregon is a current national title contender and almost landed him back in high school. USF and UCF were talked about due to their distance from Miami as well as Florida Atlantic. Maryland was being considered a possibility, and many thought the favorites to land Taulia was Miami. At Miami, he could replace De'Aaron King after his lone season and play in the same city as his brother. Taulia Tagovailoa decided to transfer to the University of Maryland. To most fans, this may seem like a weird choice. Maryland has not won more than 7 games since joining the Big Ten, and that was in their first season back in 2014. They have not had a double-digit win season since 2003 and are coming off a 3-win season. So why Maryland? Mike Locksley, the head coach of Maryland, was the offensive coordinator at Alabama in 2018 when Tua was a Heisman finalist and recruited Taulia to Alabama. Taulia also gets to play in the Big Ten, separating himself from what Tua did at both Alabama and in the SEC. By playing at Maryland, there is no pressure to win a national championship, so Taulia can just focus on becoming a better quarterback. And hey, if Taulia can help turn the Maryland program around, it'll show he is no fluke. It is also looking like Maryland and Locksley may be building something special, having the 35th ranked recruiting class in 2020 and currently sitting at the 13th best recruiting class in the class of 2021. Gavin Hardison was born on May 15, 2000 and grew up in Hobbs, New Mexico. Gavin was always a talented quarterback growing up and would earn the nickname of Golden Arm later in his career, but growing up in New Mexico meant trying to land a major college football offer was going to be an uphill battle. Gavin attended Hobbs High School, where he would see limited time as a sophomore and won the starting quarterback job as a junior. Gavin would finish the year throwing for 3,276 yards and 33 touchdowns, but the Eagles would struggle going 2-8, but 2017 would be a breakout year not just for Hobbs, but for Hardison as well. Gavin would lead the Eagles to a 9-3 record and to the 6th seed in the New Mexico 6A state playoffs, where they would lose to Cleveland 49-24 in the quarterfinals. Gavin finished the year throwing for a New Mexico State record 5,357 passing yards and a school record of 59 passing touchdowns. In addition to setting the single-season passing yardage record, Hardison also set the single-game passing yards record twice. During Week 2, he passed for 615 yards in a road win over Artesia, breaking the record set in 2003 of 546 yards. In Week 9, he set a new record with 629 passing yards and a win. By the end of the season, Hardison had 5 of the top 10 single-game passing games in New Mexico prep football history, including the top 3. Hardison spoke on the accomplishment saying, "It is pretty cool to be able to say that, but at the same time, I have to thank my receivers and linemen and coaching staff. If it wasn't for those guys, none of that would have happened. We were just trying to win games, and I was doing whatever I could to help my team win. He would be named the NewMexicoPreps.com New Mexico Quarterback of the Year and State's Mr. Football. After receiving the State's Mr. Football award, he would tell Hobbs News, "I was just trying to be the best quarterback I could be. Just trying to focus on what I could do to help my team be the best team they could be." While his head coach spoke on the accomplishment, saying, "That position of quarterback is very, very important at all levels." He was pretty much irreplaceable at that position this year. He was very important to have and did a very good job of getting the ball to all those great receivers that we had. He had an amazing year. Although Hardison was given all the accolades, he felt that it was a team award in the end because he could not accomplish what he did without his offensive line or wide receivers. He would surprisingly not be given the award unanimously, with Taylor Knoll earning a #1 vote from a media member. Hardison's head coach spoke on this, saying, "He should be unanimous in my eyes, of course. I think 10 years from now, I think the record will still stand and people will still be talking about Gavin Hardison from 2017. I'm glad that he was recognized so easily." Gavin was never focused on individual accolades throughout his high school career, but instead wanted to focus on helping his team win games. Luckily, him performing at a high level meant his team won games. Winning said award put him in the same conversation as former Oklahoma quarterback Landry Jones when it came to the New Mexico high school football. Unfortunately, Hardison would fly completely under the radar and receive no college offers as he decided to start his college career at the New Mexico Military Institute, which is a strong JUCO program in New Mexico. As a true freshman at New Mexico Military Institute, Hardison appeared in 5 games and totaled 408 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. His best game of the season came against Air Force Prep when he threw for 187 yards, 2 touchdowns, and rushed for a touchdown as well. While at the New Mexico Military Institute, he would catch the attention of UTEP head coach Dane, who would proceed to give the New Mexico quarterback a chance. There was a lot of excitement surrounding Gavin heading into the 2019 JUCO season, as according to the Broncos website, he looked like he was about to put together a special season as he impressed during their 7v7 competitions and showed a growth in maturity, but a chance to play Division I football was an opportunity Gavin could not pass up, so he decided to sign with UTEP. Gavin Hardison would redshirt during the 2019 season, appearing in 3 games, throwing for 335 yards and a touchdown. He'd win the starting job after a redshirt freshman, TJ Godwin, decided to opt out of the 2020 season. After winning the starting job, Hardison spoke on the achievement, saying, "I've been preparing for a long time for this moment. I'm just trying to take it day by day and be the best I could be and just win games for this program." He would start 7 of UTEP's games during the shortened season, throwing for 1,419 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions, while UTEP finished the year 3-5. While 2020 was not an eye-popping season, 2021 would turn into Gavin's breakout season as he helped revive the Miners football program. The player who was once thought of as an afterthought became the school's superstar. He put in the work throughout the 2021 season, and things became easier with him telling El Paso Times, "The game slowed down a little more for me. I'm seeing defenses. I've learned how to study film better. Every aspect of my game has just improved, and it's going to continue to improve as I keep going through this program." He would check out of bad plays into good plays that fit the situation better and grew into the team's leader. He brought a presence of calm and steady. One of the wide receivers told the media he doesn't let anything get to him. "That's one great thing I love about Gavin. He doesn't let anything faze him. In the huddle, he takes control of the team. He takes control of the opportunity we have." Gavin finished the year throwing for 3,217 passing yards, 18 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions, becoming the first quarterback since 2009 to throw for over 3,000 passing yards in a season. For UTEP, he was named Honorable Mention All-Conference, and UTEP finished 7-6, losing the New Mexico Bowl to Fresno State 31-24. Heading into the 2022 season, there was a lot of excitement surrounding Gavin Hardison and UTEP football as they looked to go to back-to-back bowl games for the first time since 2004-2005. Heading into the season, offense coordinator Dave Warner told El Paso Times, "I think he's made a lot of progress. The big thing we always try to do with him since I've gotten here is to not let him rely on his arm all the time. He's got a good arm, but the big thing is taking the easy throws. That will increase his passing percentages, and hopefully that will increase our offensive output and score every game. With what we have offensively, we want to be quick strike, a big strike type of offense, but you have to balance that a little bit." They hoped he would raise his completion percentage up to over 60% for the season, and Hardison would fine-tune everything. He did not care about his numbers, but was focused on making sure his team won football games. He would start the first 10 games of the season throwing for 2,044 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions before having his season ended by an ankle injury. UTEP would take a step back, just missing out on a bowl game, going 5-7 as well. Heading into the 2023 season, Hardison was focused on returning healthy and leading UTEP to another successful season after a disappointing year the season before. He would be playing under a new offensive coordinator, but was excited with the offense Scotty O'Hara brought in, describing it as versatile. After a 1-3 start where the offense struggled to find an identity, Gavin Hardison would call a players-only meeting. They were in the bottom 10 of scoring in the FBS and the offense was very inefficient. Unfortunately, Hardison would not get to be able to be the hero the Miners needed as he would injure his elbow in their match against UNLV the same week. He tried to play through the injury but in the end needed to get season-ending surgery. The same surgery Brock Purdy went through. He would still remain a key leader for the team and served as a mentor for the younger quarterbacks with his career over. He finished the year throwing for 947 yards, 5 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, while also rushing for 2 touchdowns on the ground. UTEP would finish the year 3-9 as well. Heading into the 2024 NFL Draft, there are a lot of questions surrounding Gavin Hardison, but if he finds the right situation, he could develop into a special late-round pick. He recently met with the Green Bay Packers and is projected to be a late-round draft pick or priority free agent. Ben Bryant was born on September 17, 1999, and grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. He was one of 3 children in his family and began playing football at a young age. He would get connected with quarterback trainers in middle school and focused on honing his skills to be the best quarterback he could be in high school. Bryant attended Lyons High School, where he would serve as mainly a backup his freshman year before taking over the starting job his sophomore year. As a junior, Bryant would lead Lyons to an 8-3 record to the second round of the Class 8A playoffs, where they would lose to Paladin 20-17. Ben finished the year throwing for 1,847 yards and 20 touchdowns, earning multiple awards and accolades. Heading into the senior year, there was a lot of excitement surrounding the Lions football team and specifically Ben Bryant. He had passed through a stressful time in his life, which I will talk about in just a few minutes, and his offense was stacked with talent and he made sure to give credit to his impressive offensive line. As a senior, Bryant threw for 1,685 yards and 18 touchdowns, with just 2 interceptions, as Lions would go 7-4 and they would lose in the first round of the 8A state playoffs. He finished his high school career rewriting his school's record book, throwing for over 5,000 passing yards in his career and accounting for 59 passing touchdowns. He set every passing record in every category at Lyons Township, was a 2-time West Suburbs Silver Conference Offensive MVP, an All-League selection, and earned Suburban Life All-Area Team honors 3 times and earned Illinois High School Football Coaches Association Class 8A accolades as a senior, along with the WSS All-Conference honors and a spot on the Suburban Life All-Area Team. Coming out of high school according to 24/7 Sports Composite, Ben Bryant was a 3-star recruit who was the 30th best pro-style quarterback and 734th best player in the 2018 recruiting class. He received over 10 different Division I offers from the likes of Cincinnati, Georgia, Ole Miss, West Virginia, and Wisconsin. Wisconsin actually would be his first Division I offer, as Wisconsin would find him early on into the recruiting process. He would commit on December 7, 2016, and would later receive an invitation to the 2017 National Combine at the U.S. Army All-American Bowl in San Antonio, Texas. He was on top of the world and was extremely excited to see what would come next in Madison. He had achieved his dream of becoming a Division I quarterback and would have the complicated recruiting process out of the way for the rest of his high school career. But then everything would come crashing down for Bryant. A few months after committing to Wisconsin, Bryant would receive an offer from Georgia, which he announced on Twitter on May 11, 2017. No big deal, something every recruit does throughout their recruiting process. The same thing other quarterbacks have done while having offers from Wisconsin in the past. Wisconsin felt differently though, and they would pull a scholarship offer a few days later. Bryant would release a statement a few days later, writing that this was a nightmare situation and that he had shut his recruitment down completely. When other coaches would come to visit, he would make it obvious he was 100% committed to Wisconsin. Georgia was ready to host Bryant at the time, but according to Bryant, he had no intentions of taking the visit to Athens, although him and the coaches had been texting back and forth according to Bryant. Bryant claimed he called Wisconsin's coaches and left a voicemail telling them he was releasing a tweet about the Georgia offer, but was 100% committed to Wisconsin. Bryant felt like UW never made him feel a part of the family throughout the process, but also admitted he probably should not have responded to Georgia when he was 100% committed. It was a complicated situation where Wisconsin would never release a statement about the situation. Some felt Wisconsin used this situation to dump Bryant from their recruiting class after receiving a commitment from Chase Wolf. Over the next few months, Bryant tried to rebuild his name and figure out what the right next step would be. At the end of June, he would decide to commit to, ironically, Luke Fickell, who is now the head coach of Wisconsin and the Cincinnati Bearcats. Ben Bryant would play his one game as a freshman and redshirted, finishing the 2018 season, throwing for 75 yards and an interception, completing 6 of his 8 passes. The following year, he would primarily serve as the backup to Desmond Ridder, starting the final regular season game against Memphis after Desmond got hurt. In that game, he would throw for 388 yards, a touchdown and 2 interceptions, while also rushing for a touchdown on the ground. In 2020, he once again served as Ridder's backup, finishing the year completing nearly 80% of his passes for 90 yards and a touchdown, while also rushing for a touchdown. Bryant would graduate from Cincinnati that season and would choose to enter the transfer portal, saying, "Upon graduation from the University of Cincinnati, I felt like it was my best interest to explore my options." This was due to the fact that Desmond Ridder chose to return for the 2021 season, meaning Bryant would be serving as his backup once again. They had also added Evan Prater from Wyoming High School, who was the 2019 Ohio Mr. Football Award winner and was hyped to the moon by Cincinnati fans coming out of high school. Bryant would choose to transfer to Eastern Michigan, where both his parents had graduated from, and he would sort of revive his career there. Ironically, Eastern Michigan traveled to Camp Randall during the 2021 season, meaning Bryant got to play a game in Madison, but not on the sidelines he originally expected to be on. He beat out the Eagles starter for the 2020 season, Preston Hutchinson, to win the starting job, and threw for 126 yards in the season-opening win over St. Francis while splitting time with Hutchinson. While the Wisconsin game resulted in a loss for Eastern Michigan, it served as a full-circle turning point for Bryant's collegiate career, as he would throw for over 200 passing yards in the next 8 games, and in 10 of the last 11 games of the season, finishing the year throwing for 3,121 passing yards, 14 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, while also rushing for 2 touchdowns on the ground. Following the 2021 season, Ben Bryant would return to Cincinnati as a graduate transfer once again, after leading the Eagles to a 7-6 record. Bearcats wanted to bring in a veteran quarterback to compete with third-year quarterback Evan Prater and to compete with an incoming freshman. What better transfer quarterback is there than the one with starting experience who spent 3 years at your school? The Bearcats had helped Bryant transfer to Eastern Michigan when they learned Ridder was returning for the 2021 season, so the relationship was still really strong. Although Prater was viewed as Ridder's heir apparent, Bryant was not going down without a fight. Bryant would win the starting quarterback job, but would suffer a season-ending foot injury against Temple that required him to don a boot after the game, and he finished the year throwing for 2,732 yards, 21 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, and led the Bearcats to a 9-2 record, with their lone 2 losses coming against Arkansas and UCF, both on the road. Bearcats would lose to Tulane the following week, 27-24, knocking them out of the American Athletic Conference Championship game, and they would lose to Louisville in the Wasabi Fenway Bowl 24-7. After the season, Cincinnati would bring in a brand new coaching staff after Coach Fickell left for Wisconsin, and Scott Satterfield would bring in Emory Jones through the transfer portal to compete with Bryant, with Jones winning the job. This led to Bryant transferring once again, this time to Northwestern, who was recovering from a major hazing scandal after a 1-11 season, and many expected them to go 0-12 this year. David Braun brought the team together as they pulled off miracle after miracle. When the Wildcats were down 31-10 in the fourth quarter, Ben Bryant decided to lead his team to a miraculous win, as they rallied to beat the Gophers 37-34 in overtime. Bryant would get hurt in the Penn State game, but would return for the Wisconsin game, getting his first win in Camp Randall, throwing for 195 yards and 2 touchdowns, while also rushing for a score. He would lead Northwestern on a 4-game win streak, helping them finish the season 8-5, beating Utah in the Las Vegas Bowl. Bryant finished the year throwing for 1,807 yards, 13 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, while also rushing for 4 touchdowns on the ground. Heading into the 2024 NFL Draft, Bryant is projected to be a late-round pick to priority free agent. He already has his MBA and is hoping to just get a shot in the NFL. Jack Plummer was born on October 21st, 1999 in Dubuque, Iowa. When he was a kid, his family would move from Iowa to Arizona, where he would go on to attend Gilbert High School. Jack would not really get any playing time as a freshman, but would earn the starting job as a sophomore, leading Gilbert to a 5-5 record, throwing for 1,577 yards, 16 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. As a junior, the Tigers would struggle going 1-9, but Jack would continue to improve as a quarterback, throwing for 2,475 yards, 18 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. That offseason, his recruitment would begin to ramp up as he would receive his first Division I offer from Arizona, on February 25, 2017. While Gilbert continued to struggle as a team during Jack's senior season, Jack himself would have his best season, throwing for 2,822 yards, 35 touchdowns, and just 7 interceptions, leading the Tigers to a 4-6 record. Jack had 5 games with more than 300 passing yards, threw for 4 touchdowns or more in 7 games, and also rushed for 404 yards and 7 touchdowns on the season, even having a 100-yard rushing game against Highlands, averaging 10.7 yards per carry. Jack would even account for 7 total touchdowns in one game. Throughout his senior year, Gilbert would find themselves losing in shootout fashion, 41-28 to Red Mountain, 68-47 to Desert Ridge, and the aforementioned 41-34 loss to Highland. They would also lose a total of 4 games by 1 score or less. Jack was named Honorable Mention All-USA, Arizona high school team, and finished his high school career throwing for 6,913 passing yards and 69 passing touchdowns to 25 interceptions. Coming out of high school according to 24/7 Sports Composite, Jack Plummer was a 3-star recruit who was the 22nd best pro-style quarterback and 556th best player in the 2018 recruiting class. He received over 11 different Division I offers from the likes of Arizona, Cincinnati, Purdue, Oregon State, and South Carolina. He would choose to commit to Jeff Brom in Purdue in June of 2017. Mike Giovando, Jack's personal quarterback coach, told Arizona Central, Jack has great size and an excellent command of the football. He's got great velocity when needed and has an excellent touch as well. For a big quarterback, he's very mobile and can run and extend plays. He's also very intelligent and will easily be able to learn any offensive system. He's got poise, doesn't seem to get rattled much. He has all the qualities you are looking for in a quarterback. Jack would not get any playing time during the 2018 season, although he would enroll early, resulting in him being redshirted that year, and heading into 2019, he would become Purdue's main backup quarterback. When starter Elijah Sindelar would suffer a concussion against Vanderbilt, Jack would take over the starting quarterback job. He had big shoes to fill as at the time Elijah had led the nation in passing yards and total offense. In a 34-13 loss to TCU, Jack would throw for 181 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. He would start 7 games that year, throwing for 1,603 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. Heading into the complicated 2020 season, everyone expected Jack Plummer to be the starting quarterback after showing positive flashes until he got injured. But there were others that felt that quarterback battle would linger throughout the season with 3 quarterbacks competing for the job. Some wondered whether preferred walk-on Aiden O'Connell would win the job, while others thought UCLA transfer Austin Burton could play his way into the role. O'Connell would instead win the starting quarterback job over Jack Plummer, and he would play in 3 games until he suffered a season-ending foot injury. O'Connell tried to play through it, but it was too much and he needed to get surgery. Jack Plummer would be named the starting quarterback for the final 3 games of the season, going 0-3 as a starter, finishing the season throwing for 938 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, while also rushing for a score. 3 of Purdue's 4 losses to end the season were 1-score games, with the last one of the season being a 37-27 loss to Nebraska. Jack and his brother Will, who was at Arizona, were both named the starting quarterback the same week, which led to a great story in early December. Jack's dad, Brad, wanted to see Jack play in person, so he traveled to West Lafayette to see his son throw for 237 yards and account for 3 touchdowns in their loss to Rutgers. When they turned on the TV for the Arizona game after Purdue's game, they watched Grant Gunnell go down with an injury, and in came Jack's brother Will. Both would finish their respective seasons as the starters. Plummer would win the starting quarterback job heading into the 2021 season, as did his brother Will. Jack would lead Purdue to a 3-1 record to open up the season, throwing for 864 yards and 7 touchdowns and no interceptions, but would lose the starting quarterback job heading into the Minnesota game because Brom wanted to bring in a running quarterback. Aiden would throw for 3,712 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions, and with the writing on the wall for the 2022 season for Jack's starting hopes, he decided to enter the transfer portal. O'Connell and Plummer were close friends, so Aiden was sad to see his friend go, but hoped he would find success wherever he ended up, and hoped they would remain friends for a long time. Plummer entered the portal during a time where Spencer Rattler transferred to South Carolina from Oklahoma, Quinn Ewers transferred from Ohio State to Texas, while Bo Nix, Keaton Slovis, and Miles Brennan were all still in the portal. After 4-year starter Chase Garbers entered the transfer portal, Cal was looking for a starting quarterback, so they would invite Plummer to take an official visit. He would commit to Cal during the visit and would be named the Week 1 starter heading into the season over Kai Milner and Zach Johnson. In the season opener against UC Davis, Plummer shined, throwing for 268 yards and 3 touchdowns in the Golden Bears' 34-13 win. His best game of the season would come in the season finale, when he threw for 294 yards and 4 touchdowns in a close loss to number 18 UCLA, 35-28. Cal finished the season 4-8, while Plummer finished the year throwing for 3,119 yards, 21 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. After Cal fired offense coordinator Bill Musgrave and brought in Jake Spavital to run an air raid offense compared to the pro-style offense Plummer had played in during the 2022 season, Jack decided to enter the transfer portal once again, and so did Milner. Jack would choose to reunite with Jeff Brom, who is now coaching at Louisville for his final year of eligibility. He would have his best season of his career at Louisville, throwing for 3,204 yards, 21 touchdowns and 12 interceptions, leading the Cardinals to a 10-2 regular season record and a spot in the ACC championship game. They would unfortunately lose to a beaten down Florida State team 16-6 in the ACC title game and would fall to USC 42-28 in the Holiday Bowl. Heading into the 2024 NFL Draft, Jack Plummer is expected to either be a late round pick or priority free agent. He's a quarterback who can sling it, but does not have the most athleticism in the world. It's been a crazy journey for Jack, who will hope he could just get a shot in the NFL. Michael Rocky Lombardi was born on July 30th, 1998 at the University of Michigan Hospital in Ann Arbor, Michigan. He is named after Rocky Blair, who was a running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 1970s, who also happened to be a war veteran playing his entire NFL career with only part of his right foot. Both his parents are former college athletes, teachers, and coaches. His mom coached volleyball while his dad was a football coach. Rocky's father, Tony, coached at Wisconsin, Mankato State, Eastern Michigan, and for a year, the short-lived XFL's Chicago Enforcers. Rocky is the oldest of 5, meaning he had to learn to be a leader as the older brother and learn how to teach people the right way. From a young age, Rocky wanted to play quarterback, and with his father being a coach, he knew he had to see if his son actually had what it took to be a quarterback, both talent-wise and intangible-wise. Rocky impressed early on, but the craziest moment probably came in 2010 when he was 11 or 12. His father was the coach at Cedar Rapids, Washington, and brought their team to a 7-on-7 high school tournament. Both his sons would tag along for the game. During one of the games, their quarterback would get hurt and they were down 2 scores. Tony was looking around trying to figure out what the right decision was, and saw his son with a helmet in hand ready to go. So he let the 5'8" middle schooler with a baby face and high-pitched voice go onto the field and play with the varsity football team. Rocky erased all doubts by orchestrating a brilliant comeback. He rifled a pass in and around the defense, batting players with pump fakes and poking holes in the zone. Tony stood stunned on the sidelines. The way he remembered it, we went from down 15 to up 20 after Rocky entered the game. The play that impressed all was Rocky was able to get the defense to press and uncorked a 40-yard bomb that resulted in a touchdown. The defense talked trash saying the wide receiver got lucky. The receiver would respond that his quarterback was in 6th grade and there was no luck involved. That was when Tony realized his son could be a special quarterback. Rocky would go on to play at Valley High School in West Des Moines, Iowa, where he would take over the starting quarterback role in his sophomore year. Rocky would lead them to a 10-2 record in the quarterfinals of the Class 4A state playoffs, while he would throw for 2,097 yards, 21 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, while also rushing for 222 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground. The following year, the Tigers would go 10-3, losing to the eventual state champions Dowling Catholic 24-6 in the semifinals. Rocky finished the year throwing for 2,258 yards, 25 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, while also rushing for 404 yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground. Heading into his senior year, Rocky chased perfection, wanting to be the best quarterback he could be, but knew he would never be perfect. His drive to be great made him one of the greatest Iowa quarterback prospects in the past half-decade at the time. During his senior year, Steve Wiltfong from 24/7 Sports wrote on Rocky saying, "First and foremost, he's a big, strong kid that could do everything you want at quarterback. He's a top multi-sport athlete. We have him as the number 4 player in Iowa in what's a pretty good year in Iowa. He's a guy that, in addition to his physical tools, he's going to bring the right demeanor that you need to play the quarterback position." Rocky never cared about the individual accolades, but wanted to find team success in general. His younger brother, Bo, would tell the Des Moines Register, "I would say he's pretty much a perfectionist. I see it all the time. We play so many different sports, and he's good at all of them. We could try anything new, and he's either going to be good at it, or he'll work to become good at it. Rocky would lead Valley to an undefeated regular season, but they would lose in the quarterfinals 14-10, ending Rocky's pursuit for perfection and a state title. Rocky finished his high school career throwing for 1,463 yards, 20 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, while also rushing for 353 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground as a senior. He finished his career as a starter going 30-6. Rocky also wrestled, played baseball, and ran track. Wrestling was probably one of his best sports. He usually wrestled at 220, but to win the team state title, Valley needed Rocky to wrestle at the heavyweight level. Rocky would do so and won 3-2 to help Valley secure a state title. As a senior, Rocky would go 38-2, finishing second in the state at his weight and top 10 in the country. Rocky believes wrestling, which he started to do at 6, taught him how to be physical and mentally tough, as well as build his confidence up. Coming out of high school, according to 24/7 Sports Composite, Rocky Lombardi was a 3-star recruit who was the 12th best dual-threat quarterback and 558th best player in the 2017 recruiting class. He received over 6 different Division I offers from the likes of Iowa, Iowa State, Michigan State, and Virginia. After his junior season, he realized he wanted to play pro football one day, so he scanned NFL rosters to see where a majority of the quarterbacks came from. He came away most impressed with Michigan State and gave his verbal commitment to Coach Mark D'Antoni on April 3rd. Wilt Fong explained, "They play in a pro-style offense. They have a great culture, and they have a great coaches. What they ask their kids to do, it translates really well to the next level, from the offense to the terminology, so things they have to do and know pre-snap. Rocky will have to beat out some good players, but he's plenty capable. We think he's going to be a multi-year starter at Michigan State, and their last 2 multi-year starters were drafted. He fits that program, just a hard-nosed blue-collar type kid that they covet in East Lansing." Rocky Lombardi would redshirt during his freshman year in 2017 and was named the Scout Team Offensive Player of the Week when they ironically took on Iowa. In 2018, he started 3 games and played in 8, with 7 coming at quarterback and 1 coming at punter. He finished the year throwing for 738 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. During the 2019 season, he would get 51 snaps, throwing for 74 yards and 2 interceptions, but things were not going to go the way he had hoped and dreamed back in high school. Throughout his career, he sat behind Brian Lewerke, who had been Michigan State's starter since 2017. But come 2020, Lewerke was on the Patriots practice squad. Michigan State had a new head coach in Mel Tucker after Mark D'Antoni chose to retire. Rocky was the favorite to win the starting quarterback job after spending the past few seasons as their primary backup. He was confident and comfortable in the system, serving as an upperclassman. He was competing against 2018 recruit Theo Day and freshman Peyton Thorne. Rocky would win the starting quarterback job, though. Rocky would start 6 of Michigan State's 7 games, throwing for 1,090 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions, leading the Spartans to wins over in-state rival and top 25 ranked Michigan and a top 10 ranked Northwestern, but Thorne would be given the nod in the season finale against Penn State, where he threw for 325 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Rocky had struggled against Iowa, throwing 3 interceptions, and was pulled in the second quarter against Indiana in favor of Thorne. He once again struggled against Ohio State before getting hurt. After the season, Rocky announced he would be entering the transfer portal. He would choose to transfer to Northern Illinois with 2 years of eligibility left. In 2021, Rocky would win the starting quarterback job, leading the Huskies to a 9-5 record in the MAC championship, where they beat Kent State 41-23. Rocky finished the year throwing for 2,597 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions, while also rushing for nearly 500 yards and 9 touchdowns on the ground. In 2022, Lombardi would have his season cut short due to an injury, only getting to play in 4 games and was given a medical redshirt, so he would play in his 7th and final season this past year, rocking a mullet and mustache. Rocky would lead Northern Illinois to a 7-6 record, throwing for 2,274 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions, while also rushing for 7 touchdowns on the ground. Heading into the 2024 NFL Draft, Rocky Lombardi is expected to be a late day 3 pick or priority free agent. He has taken an interesting journey to this year's NFL Draft and will be an interesting player to watch in the future. Jason Bean was born on June 9, 1999, and grew up in Mansfield, Texas, which is south of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Bean was not your typical future possible NFL Draft pick. He would attend Lake Ridge High School, where he would take over the starting quarterback job his junior year. He saw some playing time his sophomore year, but really only as the backup. During his junior year, he would break out as a possible future recruit, throwing for 2,956 yards and 29 touchdowns, and rushed for 530 yards and 7 touchdowns, leading to an 8-5 record in the third round of the Texas 5-8 state playoffs. During that run, Lake Ridge would beat Samuel 87-58, and the offense put up points throughout the season. Bean was named second team All-District, 10-5A, and was looking to have an even better senior season. As a senior, Bean would lead the Eagles to a 12-2 record, winning the district and made it to the quarterfinals of the Texas 5A state playoffs, losing to eventual champions Highland Park 37-35. Bean would throw for 1,682 yards and 20 touchdowns, while also rushing for nearly 700 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. Coming out of high school, according to 24/7 Sports Composite, Jason Bean was a 3-star recruit who was the 72nd best pro-style quarterback and 2,129th best player in the 2018 recruiting class. Received over 5 different Division I offers from the likes of Colorado State, Liberty, Louisiana Tech, North Texas, and SMU, choosing to stay close to home and attend North Texas before his senior season. Jason Bean would redshirt his freshman year at North Texas, appearing in the Mean Greens Bowl game against Utah State, rushing for 14 yards and throwing 1 interception. During the 2019 season, Bean appeared in 7 games, throwing for 176 yards, 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, completing 62.9% of his passes, while also rushing for 80 yards on the ground. Bean would finally get the starting nod during the 2020 season, starting 7 games and appearing in 8, throwing for 1,131 yards, 14 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, while also rushing for 346 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground. The Mean Green would go 4-6 and lose the Myrtle Beach Bowl to Appalachian State, 56-28. Bean told the press, "We have benefited from this year. Our record doesn't say exactly how we feel the season has gone. It's been like no other, but I think it's definitely been good for the young guys to get reps." After this season, Bean decided to enter the transfer portal after playing in a 2-quarterback system for most of the year. With 3 years of eligibility left, Bean decided to transfer to Kansas during a time period where they were looking for a new head coach. Bean was going to be competing for the starting quarterback job with sophomore Jalen Daniels and senior Miles Kenrick, and ranked last in the Big 12 in 2020. With the arrival of Lance Leipold as head coach that April, Bean would do enough to win the starting quarterback job. Bean would struggle throughout the year, throwing for 1,252 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions, as Kansas would go 2-10. Through a combination of getting banged up and just not meeting expectations, Jalen Daniel, who showed some flashes as a freshman running for his life in 2020, started to take the role from Bean, cementing himself as a starter after leading Kansas to its first big win of the Lance Leipold era on the road over Texas. Jalen Daniels would take over the starting quarterback job heading into 2022, and many expected it to be a rebuilding year for the Jayhawks. Led by Daniels, they would start 5-0, and Bean came in for an injured Daniels against TCU, who would go on to play in the college football playoff. Bean would finish the game throwing for 262 yards and 4 touchdowns. The Jayhawks would lose a heartbreaker and proceeded to go on a 3-game losing streak, just 1 game away from bowl eligibility. Finally, Bean would lead Kansas to an upset win over top 25 ranked Oklahoma State to clinch bowl eligibility. But throughout the season, the fan base had mixed feelings on Bean. For all the highlight plays he would make, he would also make a bunch of mistakes, and he struggled with decision making and accuracy. Kansas would play Arkansas in the Liberty Bowl, losing in triple overtime on a play that saw Bean air the ball over the wide receiver through the back of the end zone. Bean was distraught after the game and thought about hanging up the cleats with 1 year of eligibility left. He would decide to come back for 1 more season and decide not to enter the transfer portal, even though Daniels had the starting quarterback job on lock. Daniels would miss training camp due to a back injury as well as the season opener. In the season opener, Bean would throw for 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, while also rushing for 41 yards on the ground to help Kansas win. Jalen would return for the Illinois, Nevada, and BYU games, would be forced to sit out the Texas game due to the back injury returning. Many fans feared that if Bean was taking a majority of the snaps this past season, Kansas was going to be in trouble, but Bean would prove them wrong. Kansas would start the season 5-2 and clinch bowl eligibility in an upset win at home over number 6 Oklahoma, 38-33. Bean had stolen the hearts of his coaches, the fans, and the national media as the guy who kept fighting and never gave up. He would miss the Texas Tech and Kansas State games, which were 1-possession games for the Jayhawks, and many felt had Jason been the starting quarterback, they would have won those games. Jason Bean has gone from erratic backup to fan favorite. He was not done yet, though. He would return for the Cincinnati game and helped Kansas win their first bowl game since 2008, in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl despite being without Jalen Daniels, who was the preseason Big 12 Player of the Year. Bean finished the season throwing for 2,130 yards, 18 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, while also rushing for nearly 300 yards on the ground, en route to going down as a Kansas legend. Jason Bean finished his career at Kansas with 4,662 yards passing, which is 7th all-time in Kansas football history. He also threw for 38 touchdowns, which is the second most ever by a Jayhawks quarterback. David Az from Rock Chalk Talk summed it up perfectly in his article, Jason Bean, We Never Deserved You. Jason Bean was great. Forget his mistakes. The guy wasn't a perfect quarterback, but he was a hell of a football player. He was unconventional, but he got things done. He was a guy you could put your trust in when Kansas needed points. Jason Bean is now a football legend in Lawrence. Now, Jason Bean turns his attention to the 2024 NFL Draft, where he has graded out as a possible Day 3 pick. The Jason Bean story is a special one, and I cannot wait to see what the next chapter writes. And those are the backstories of the top 23 quarterbacks in the 2024 NFL Draft, according to Dane Brugler. Thank you guys so much for watching this. It's a culmination of a lot of special things over the past few years. You sat through this whole thing, thank you. Let me know who your favorite NFL prospect is in this year's NFL Draft. If you enjoyed this insanely long video, make sure to check out one of my other videos YouTube thinks you will love right here. And as always, remember to embrace the grind.